City Council order. Would everybody please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? Hand over your heart. Ready, begin.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Shannon, will you take a roll call, please?
Councilmember Garola.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Villasenor.
Here.
Mayor Austin.
Here.
Councilmember Broggie.
Here.
Councilmember Mendez.
Here.
Thank you.
Okay, I'd like to move on to item number 4, approval of the agenda.
All
I
right.
move to approve the agenda.
I'll second. We have a motion on the floor, so
Yeah, can you guys?
we've got to.
You can
Oh,
do it.
can you amend that motion? Okay. Oh, it's been.
Okay, it's been removed.
Okay. I'll make a new motion on the agenda. I'd like to move item 9E to the beginning of the new business in front of 9A.
You guys can thank us and you won't have to wait around.
My motion's on the floor.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second the
motion.
I have a motion. I have a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Moving on to item number 5A, SB 1383, presentation by Nan Drake, Director of Governmental Affairs and Public Relations from E.G. Harrison and Sons.
Good evening, everyone. I am not the speaker this evening, but I am going to introduce the speaker because we have with us probably one of the best-known speakers on SB 1383 in California, maybe a lot of other places too, because Agriman, as you all know, are services to you through us, and he now does how many cities? Over 200 cities. So he's the man. He's going to explain it all to you. And with that, I would like to introduce Bill Camarillo, again, who is the CEO of Agriman and one of the experts in California.
Thank you, Nan. Good evening, everyone. Pleasure to see all of you. And I got a lot of slides here, but I'll go through them fairly quickly. So we're used to lots of legislation coming out of Sacramento. This one was passed back in 2016, and it's not a recycling bill. So we're going to kind of go through why the bill was passed and what the intent of the bill is, and none of us can do this by ourselves. So we're going to talk a little bit about how the Harrisons, Agriman, Gold Coast are all collaborating with the municipalities and our customer partners, the farmers, and basically everybody's in this together. So I've been doing this presentation all over the state, and we'll be going to New Orleans to talk about it because other states are now starting to emulate what California is doing. Washington just passed the same law. Oregon's next, Colorado, the East Coast. So I think people are starting to take the changes in climate a little bit more seriously. So we all have a collective mission with Agriman to advance innovation for regenerative soil science through organic waste solutions to combat and reverse climate change. And we do this by partnering with waste haulers, municipalities, farmers, landscapers, and consumers so that we can try and do our part to heal the planet. If you can remember back to 1990, probably the most aggressive law change in the waste industry was AB 939, and that was to divert 50% of the trash from the landfills by the year 2000. We were successful with that. Agriman was born out of that, and so was Gold Coast Recycling that the Harrisons invested in over 30 years ago to meet these mandates. Fast forward to SB 1383, it's a short-lived climate pollutant bill. And basically what they're saying, over a 20-year period of time, methane is 80 times more potent than CO2. And the emissions of methane from landfills, even though they have these nice gas capturing systems, there's still a fugitive emission coming off the dirt on the landfill. And it can be seen by NASA now through satellites, and they actually know where the methane production is, typically at landfills, typically in oil fields, and typically at dairies. So the California AB 32 law, which passed in 2006, was a climate change bill, and it attacked basically 5 industry sectors with scoping plans to reduce greenhouse gas emissions in transportation, energy, waste, water, and agriculture. So if you want to call it a carbon tax, it's in everything you do. It's in your light, it's in your fuel, it's in your food, it's in your water, it's even in your trash. So we are trying to do our part to divert waste, organic waste, and recycle. By the year 2025, we're supposed to have 75% of the waste diverted from the landfill, and it's a monumental task. In the state of California, it's estimated to be 17 to 20 million tons of organic waste in about 2.5 years. We're at about 5% of that goal today in California. A lot of that's been delayed because of the pandemic. We're pretty much 2 years behind on everything. And we'll talk a little bit about the infrastructure that we're building in Ventura County to meet these mandates. But here's why. In 2018, we had already diverted over 10 million tons of organic waste just because of AB 939. And it had a greenhouse gas emission effect of about 5 million metric tons of CO2 reduced out of the atmosphere, which is about the equivalent of reducing the use of 12 million barrels of oil. SB 1383 is doubling down on that to get us to 22 million tons diverted, which is 75% of the waste, and almost 12 million metric tons of CO2 out of the atmosphere, or about 27 million barrels of oil offset annually and ongoing. So reduction of greenhouse gases is one way to get carbon out of the atmosphere. The other way is you got to draw it down. And you draw down greenhouse gases or carbon out of the atmosphere through plant and trees and all of the living things on earth that help rehabilitate the soil, and that's what Agriment does, and creates healthy soil so that our plant and trees can do their jobs and draw down CO2 out of the atmosphere. And I'm going to show you some really cool examples of carbon farming projects we're now doing in the state to help the drawdown side of the equation. The other thing you need to know is there's a cost to this. Organics recycling is the lowest cost impact benefit to greenhouse gas emission reductions. So to recycle organic waste is about $53 a CO2 metric ton reduction. If you go to zero emission vehicles, like we're all being driven to, the electric vehicles, those are almost $3,000 a metric ton of CO2 reduction. So it's best for us to work on the low-hanging fruit first. Organics recycling, food recovery, healthy soils initiatives to rehabilitate agricultural soils before we move on to the CNG trucks, which the Harrisons already have a CNG fleet, which is a very expensive reduction also. And then ultimately all the ZEVs that we're going to have to be driving by 2035 because you won't be able to buy another gas car in California. So what is Agriment doing? So about 2 years ago, we knew that one of the elements of SB 1383 is a procurement requirement called Article 12. So we created a new platform called California Compost for jurisdictions because Agriment, we didn't want cities to have a bad experience with the use of compost and mulch because not all composts are created equal. And we've seen lots of bad applications of compost in parks made from organics that had glass in it. So we want to make sure that the communities, when they're buying products, there's a standard, there's a certification, and there's a way for you to make sure that you're getting the right product for the right application. This program is free to jurisdictions. It helps with sourcing, fulfillment, and the reporting requirements of SB 1383. There was a bill that passed just last year called AB 1985 because all the jurisdictions were not ready to buy 8% of their total population in tons of compost. So they allowed a kind of a tiering effect. So this year, only 30% is required of the total, 65% next year, and 100% by 2025 when the goal is taking full effect. The platform offers jurisdiction analysis where we help the jurisdictions figure out how to use compost in the communities and the parks and streetways, or a brokering opportunity where you could broker it to an agricultural partner within your community to still meet that mandate. Here's an example. The city of Oxnard has to purchase roughly 2,800 tons of compost or 4,900 tons of mulch in 2023. That's a 30% number of the total that they have to purchase based on their population. The reporting is easy. We provide it every quarter. We give you all the analytics and the analysis that you have to turn into CalRecycle. If you ever had to do one of their annual electronic reports, it's a job. It's a multiple person job, and it gets done in August of every year, and all these things have to be in there along with everything else. Here's the solution. It's beneath our feet. Mother Nature already know how to draw down carbon out of the atmosphere. So scientists, which don't typically agree, have come to the conclusion that we could remove more carbon out of the atmosphere by fixing the soil. Historically, and I'm talking over 100 years ago, when oil was discovered in 1860, it was probably in the early 1900s where they used to start to make chemical fertilizers for monoculture. And they stopped practicing the regenerative practices for ag land and letting farms go fallow to rehabilitate themselves. They used to have 3 to 7% carbon matter in the ground. Today we see less than 1%. The soils are exhausted. They have no carbon really left in them, and they're basically pumping more chemicals, more water to grow the same amount of food. If we just move the needle back to 3% in our agricultural soils, globally, we could actually remove 1 trillion tons of CO2 out of the atmosphere. Here's how it works. Today, in a rangeland setting where there's no till, the plants, the grasses to feed the animals, can barely consume enough carbon out of the atmosphere to feed the biology in the ground to serve the plant itself. So there's no excess carbon there to help build carbon in the soil. By adding compost to the soil, it causes the roots of the plants to grow deeper. They use less water. The plant itself grows more vigorously, pulling more carbon out of the atmosphere and then starting to store it again. So Mother Nature can start building its own topsoil if we can get it back to 3%. The problem is it takes 3,000 years to build 6 inches of topsoil by itself. And if we don't kind of do something to help rehabilitate our ag lands, it's going to be more and more complicated. So we've created a carbon debt. It's kind of like your kids taking their toys out of their toys boxes and leaving them strewn all over the house, and you get a little bit upset because they don't put them back. We've taken our toys out of the ground to drive our cars around, turn the power on, and we haven't done anything to put it back. And that's the carbon debt that we've created that we almost can't afford to pay. So I think with some of these programs where the waste industry, the energy sectors, transportation, waste, water, and agriculture collaborating in a system where we create a circular economy is really how can we can start to repair the soil. Here's some really cool projects we've been doing since 2021. This is a demonstration project in the city of Ventura where we started to apply compost on a park that was severely degraded in Montalvo. And you can see that in one application and one rain, we already started to move the needle on the carbon increase in the soil, and the park started to green up. The park soil starts to get softer because today most of our parks are so impacted, the water hits the ground and just runs off. So if you don't treat the soil and turn it back into a sponge, it doesn't absorb the water, so you end up wasting a lot of water. You can see that the turf just between the untreated and the treated doubled its water infiltration in inches per hour. It moisture doubled in the amount of water that it was holding. And you can see that in the holding capacity per cubic foot of water almost doubled as well in the soil in one application. So for jurisdictions to say there's not a need for compost, you can save a lot of money just on water, soil health, and injuries on parks by softening the parks. This is a carbon farming project we started last year on the Van Vleck Ranch in Sacramento County to serve the city of Sacramento and county of Sacramento's organic waste programs. This is one application on rangelands where cattle are raised. And you can see in the one application the greening of the grass against the untreated areas with one application. This is an ongoing project that will take place annually to to continue to increase the carbon back in the soil. This soil had less than 0.5% organic matter in it. Limoneira, our near and dear friends here that we started our farming programs with back in 2004. This is a farming project they have in the desert called Cadiz. And we did one compost application on their trees out there. And you can see on the left-hand side the flushes, the yellowing of the new leaves immediately coming through just with one application. They had just as much crop production on that tree as they do right here in Santa Paula. The Agriment factor, so we are growing very rapidly. We're today California's largest organics waste recycler, started right here in Ventura County. I've been partners with the Harrisons for 30 years now. They're a great family and a great local business. We have new projects coming online that we're excited about. The Limoneira Compost Center that took 12 years to get permitted is finally entitled with solid waste facilities permits, but we're still in the construction phase of permitting now. Who would have thought there'd be so many layers of permitting? And who would have thought it would take 12 years? Good thing we started with a vision a long time ago. We're hoping to have that place up and running by 2025. Hopefully we can break ground by the end of this year. Our Mountain View facility, which is meant to just handle source-separated commercial food waste, also entitled, also full solid waste facilities permit. Took a long time to get the permits to start construction. That one's been in process for 6 years. The equipment's ordered. It'll start to land here pretty soon. We also have new projects throughout the state going in San Jacinto, Sacramento, Lodi, and many others. This is what the Limoneira project's going to look like. It's 70 acres on the Limoneira Ranch. We'll serve all of Ventura County's organic recycling needs. Here's a cool picture of the new Mountain View facility that's being built. It's a fully automated trash truck, unloads into hoppers, nothing touches the ground, and it completely decontaminates the food waste from the plastic bottles, the bags, the jugs, you name it. It completely takes it apart so we have a clean material to work with. So that's my story. It's a call to action. It's going to take all of us to make a difference, and thank you very much for your time.
She has a couple questions.
This is how you can help, and the easy way to help, okay? It's a challenge. Commercially, it's going well. Restaurants, by law, have to do it. They understand that. Residents also collectively have to do food waste, and it's simple. Everybody has 3 barrels a week, and you have a choice to do organic waste, recycling, or trash. So the organic barrel is very lonely because it only has green waste in it, and it needs to have food waste, and it's simple. The Harrisons have the same program in every city we serve, and all you do is when you cut up a pineapple, or when you do a watermelon, or you made too much macaroni and cheese, and you have fish bones or whatever it is, put it in a plastic bag, securely tie it, put it in your green waste, and it will be taken away every week. Today at Gold Coast, we did a tour, and it was the city of Ventura's request to be there. It was very disappointing because green waste is coming back. I mean, the sun is out now, the rain has worked its magic, things are growing. So we had a lot of green waste in there today, very little food waste. People just are not doing it. And so we need your help on your website, and we'll supply the information. It's a simple little card that we've created that reminds people to do it. But it's really urgent because this is the last gasp for us collecting an unknown factor. We see it in our trash at Gold Coast, so we know people are throwing it away. If you want to put it in your garbage disposal, it's a headache for your water treatment plants, but you know, it's an option that's open. It's really far better to simply weekly. I do it at my house. I have 5 bags of it in mine because I cut up a lot of fresh fruit, it's out of rind. So if you could help us do that by talking to your friends about it, and again, we'll put the literature on your website, and I'll make sure that all of you are emailed the correct literature. And that's it, unless you have questions.
No questions, but thank you. Great presentation. And it is something new, and I think it is something hard for people to grasp or to make the change. I've heard a few comments when I've asked my fellow neighbors, how's it been going? I said, well, it's just so smelly. It's so much to get it, and then I lift the lid up, and that's going to happen. But
But the good thing is you're in control of it at your own home.
Right.
If you want to put it in a bag with 5 ounces of food, tie it, doesn't matter.
Okay.
If you want to fill it up to the brim, tie it securely, throw it in you don't want to keep it in your house.
Right.
You want to get it right out to the barrel. But how much you put in your bag depends on you. And as long as you securely tie it, believe it or not, I've gone to the landfill with Bill, and it goes through a big thresher. It's not the program we're going to end up with eventually, but it has to be done because Calorie Cycle is serious. I called our consultant on Monday and said, is there any 25 that are kind of backing off when they see that we're so ahead of the game? Bill told me today that he spoke at a conference in LA. There are very few cities doing most of these programs in California. And I guess if you have a program, if it's not perfect, but you're in a program, Calorie Cycle understands that and they appreciate it. Those without programs might get fined in 25 because they're not changing that.
Okay.
Again, thank you.
Yeah,
Great, thank you.
Nan, just a couple of comments. One, is there, and I've had a constituent ask this question about using the plastic bags. Are there plastic bags out there that are recyclable that can be used as opposed to throwing the plastic bags in, or is that something that just can't be avoided?
We can work with the plastic bags. I mean, the way we're doing it now and in the future, when it's done more mechanically, it also will be no problem because as we do it, there's a threshold. Do you want to explain it at the landfill?
Yeah, well, the plastic bags are out there, right?
Yeah.
So we don't care what kind of bag you use. If you got plastic bags laying around from Home Depot, wherever you went shopping, use those bags. Because when they get to us, their final destination is to go to the landfill properly. So they don't end up in the stormwater, in the ocean. We want to make sure that they get a final use, put your food waste in there. And like Nan said, we know that some people don't like dealing with it. So whatever it takes to make it easy on yourself, please do that. We're just trying to inspire people rather than saying you have to do this. I think a lot of people are just tired of being told what to do. And if we could encourage you, to try and help us meet these demands, it really doesn't matter. Paper bag, plastic bag, box, cup, just stick it in there. We'll grab it on the other end, and the machines will help us separate it out.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Thank you.
Yep, thank you.
Thank you, Nan, Bill, and Jim.
I forgot to introduce Jim Harrison. Sorry.
Thanks again, Jim.
Thank you.
Moving on to item number 5B, Interface Children and Family Services 211 Services in Fillmore presentation by Kelly Brown, Chief Information Officer, and Eric Stern, Executive Director.
Great, thank you. Mayor Austin and council members, it's good to be with you. Thank you very much for the time. Unfortunately, you don't get the pleasure of meeting and hearing from Kelly Brown, our Chief Communications Officer at Interface, but I'll be happy to kind of walk you through what's been going on with 211. We very much appreciate your support over the years, and so this is an opportunity just to update you to the kind of work that's happening today. And thank you for helping us to get the word out to the community so that they'll know that there are friendly voices, trained folks who are ready day in, day out, all hours of the night to be able to help if need arises. Interface Children and Family Services has a number of programs, about 30 different programs. And so our 211 work really is part of that outreach and kind of those many front doors to get folks to services, whether they're services that Interface provides or any other health and human service in the entire county. County services, Some faith organizations have services, and then the traditional county departments and community-based organizations. So there's a number of these are kind of the list of the major programs that we have. We're doing domestic violence and child abuse prevention work, human trafficking prevention, intervention, mental health and trauma treatment, justice services, working with folks coming out of incarceration, youth crisis and homelessness, and then, of course, our 211 information and assistance. And all of these are services that are available to Fillmore residents. And so they're either coming to one of our facilities, or our staff are coming out to work with your residents. We do have a number of the schools that are benefiting from our a teen dating violence prevention program and our child sexual abuse prevention program called My Body Belongs to Me. So these are just some of the things that we're providing. We do have some space in El Centro in Santa Paula, and we're providing mental health services there. So we're doing that alongside of our partners that are in that under one roof facility there, and really delighted that that's up and running. So what is 211? Well, it's a 24/7 information and referral line. You can call 211 by just dialing the 3-digit number. You can text your zip code to 898-211, or you can visit 211ventura.org. And we have about 60,000 contacts that are coming in every year from Ventura County, and we'll drill down to Fillmore statistics in a bit. But again, these are a list of some of the reasons why folks are calling to 211 or texting us for support. And far and away, the largest need year after year for over a decade, since we've been really tracking it carefully, are housing and housing-related needs. And that's probably no surprise to you all. We saw during the pandemic a doubling of the call volume almost right away at the very beginning of the pandemic, and that stayed strong. And we had a dip down a little bit last year, but we're back up to those same levels. So a tremendous, and I think what happened was during the pandemic, I think two things happened. Folks realized that they had needs, they were looking for support, and so that sort of drove traffic to 211 to get answers about COVID, or answers about school shutdowns or changes or things like that. And then I think it also sort of normalized for everyone that it's okay to need help. Right? We all were feeling the stress and strain, and I think that sort of really kind of normalized that for a lot of people, and so people are thankfully more willing to reach out for support. So in this slide, again, I'm sorry that it's so small, but these are the calls and texts coming directly from Fillmore residents. So about 447 over the last year period of time. You can see that there are families with children under 5. We track those numbers. Those who are calling about a housing status concern, at risk of homelessness, currently homeless, and then others who are concerned about housing, but their housing is stable enough for the moment, but maybe they're looking for rental assistance and things like that. So you can see that the housing numbers far and away are the largest reason why folks are calling into 211. Second, mental health and substance abuse, and that is really tracked fairly consistently across most of the cities in Ventura County. And then there's a sort of a drill down. So again, I would say if you're ever looking for doing some gap analysis to understand, well, where are the services, where are the gaps, what are people asking for, we want to be a resource for you. We can go in and we can dive into this data with you. It's up on that 211ventura.org website. There's a Power BI panel there, so you can go in and slice and dice that data as you need. So hopefully that will, it's not the only source of data, but it's a really good, reliable source of data coming directly from people who are asking for the help, not filtered through a professional saying, well, this is what I think is happening. This is actually coming from your residents. So we hope that you will find that valuable. We also, just so you know, categorize callers who are asking for something, but we don't have it in the community, or it's not available in the area, not available in the county, because we call callers back, a certain subsection of them, to ask them that question. Because what we want to do is we want to also catalog what are those things that people are asking for, but our community doesn't have it or doesn't have enough of it. And that's what we call unmet needs. And that also, I think, can be really important and actionable data for jurisdictions to look at. We have a couple of really neat special projects that we're doing. Increasingly, partners around the state are recognizing that the public is going to 211 for information. So let's just capture that moment, and let's make that an accessible moment to get folks involved in other projects that may be beneficial for them. Kick It California is a tobacco control program. So all we do is just screen callers, and we say, if you're using tobacco products, would you like a referral for some cessation programs? And California Public Health called out 211 and said that the results that they're getting from the 211 program is as good or if not better than what they're doing with healthcare itself, which is very interesting. So this is a younger population, a more diverse population that are coming in through 211, and we're able to reach them and get them to cessation programs, and they have a very high rate of completing them and actually moving off of tobacco products, which is, of course, great for their health. We have a very large $11 million 2-year project with both Southern California Edison and PG&E to provide support to vulnerable families during power safety shutoffs, public safety power shutoffs. So we're into the second year, and it's been so successful that now the utilities are starting to use 211 for any time that the electricity goes out for a community. And we had a huge amount of that going on, of course, in Northern California with all the heavy rains. So again, it's just a way to leverage what is an existing public resource, which is the 211 and the public's knowledge of that, to be able to get help to vulnerable families, and the utilities are really seeing this as a great partnership. And that's is a project that actually Kelly and I sparked for the whole state, and we were the ones to really source that with the utilities, and we're the lead entity on that project. So it's a great project for families that are vulnerable. A family might have medication that needs to be refrigerated, or they might lose all the food in their refrigerator during a power outage. These are crisis moments, especially for vulnerable families. We do a great partnership with United Way of Ventura County called the VITA Tax Appointments. So this is a volunteer income tax assistance. And so this is tax season, and there's an extension of tax delivery filing dates now. So if the public is looking for tax assistance, this is free tax preparation for families that have a lower income. So just call 211 and find out about that. Keep more of that money locally. A lot of times folks who don't expect a big return don't file their taxes because the cost of going and having that prepared is actually more than the benefit that they get. In this case, they get all of that money that comes back, and I think we're really in the millions of dollars in Ventura County of recovering tax dollars that are the residents' property, right, and need to be returned. And so it's a great win-win-win for our community. And then lastly, 211 Ride. This is a project that we do with other 211s around the state, where we provide the ability to find a ride and get a ride to the services. About a third of the 211 callers don't have transportation to get to the service that is available for them and waiting on the other end. And all we need to do is just connect those dots. So 211 Ride is a really great innovation to help solve that problem. We do a lot of, as I said a bit earlier, a lot of disaster intervention. So rest assured, if there is a disaster, heaven forbid that hits the community here, 211 will be there to be your partner and support this community. We have contracts with 34 counties. So actually our call center and staff in Camarillo, out of Camarillo, is serving a third of the California population. So we have a very large team, and the deal we have with every county is if one county's in a disaster, they get their resources first, and everybody else, has to wait their turn. And so that means that we can bring instantly probably about 70 staff to bear within a moment's notice if there was a large disaster here. So that's a great insurance program. You're not paying for that. Really, everybody pays a bit into that to enable that. And of course, this is kind of a list of the various disasters that 211's been supporting folks through. And we're still doing some recovery and support work for those who were impacted, especially with Thomas Fire, since those impacts really do last. And then I wanted to just give you a little bit of a teaser for what is coming. There's a new sort of service integration approach called Community Information Exchange. And so if you haven't heard about this, definitely keep your ears tuned for this. This has been a strategic goal for Interface for about 5 years. We then found out that the Public Health Department here was also wanting to improve the coordination of care between hospitals, CBOs, and county departments. Right now, all of those entities are sometimes working with the same person. They have different databases, they have different teams working on them, and no natural way to communicate. The Community Information Exchange will be the first time we'll be able to have a single data platform and agreements to work together across all of those different organizations. So, as you can imagine, it's a complex project, but the county has set aside $11 million to get this project started and up and running. Interface was just selected, actually this week, to be what's called the community hub for this project, to be kind of the lead community agency pulling this together, and why we have on the screen 211 2.0. We think this is kind of the next innovation for 211. Instead of just making a referral and hoping folks get there, this is now the technology will have a capacity for us to be able to make referrals, know if someone's been received by that agency, communicate together if a client gets lost and then gets found. So it's going to be quite an amazing improvement in the coordination of care across the entire county, and it'll take us a couple years to get it going. It's going to be quite sizable, but it's a very exciting project, and I hope you'll kind of keep an eye out for it. So that's called the Ventura County Community Information Exchange. We have a governing board of directors that is represented by healthcare and CBOs and patient advocates and county department staff. So it's going to be pretty fantastic, I think, once it's going. So just wanted to give you a little teaser on that. And this is a couple pictures of our team. We have an incredible team. You see Kelly down at the bottom there, Kelly Brown, our director and officer, and we have about 80% of the staff are bilingual, mostly English, Spanish, although we have another 6 or 7 other languages, native languages on the team. We have a language line where we can communicate in over 300 languages, so that really isn't a barrier. And again, this is the team that's working every day, every night, Christmas, anytime that there's a need. And so we really thank you for your support, and happy to answer any other questions that you might have.
Any questions for Eric?
I do. Thank you. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you for your presentation. It's wonderful work that 211 is doing. Actually, just want to let you know, and I'm going to contact probably someone on your staff, that we're having a health and wellness resource fair.
Great. And
that's going to happen next month, and we would love to have 211 there. So we'll be in contact about that.
Please do, yeah.
I think you sort of answered my question. It was about transportation.
Mm-hmm.
You said 211 rides. So if you're finding folks here in Fillmore and also in Piru, who just don't have that ability, that connection's already being made for them.
Yeah.
I hope so.
Yeah,
okay,
that's
wonderful.
right, yeah.
And then you had mentioned.
And that's a service that is happening, again, 24 hours a day. So someone's car breaks down Sunday night. They need to find a way to go to work on Monday. They've never had to figure out the bus system. we can just go straight online as a little planner, and we can say, okay, here's how it works. Take this bus, go here, 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 and it's a great way for them to not miss a day's work or endanger their employment. So that's the kind of thing that happens. Yeah.
Wonderful, wonderful. Thank you. And you had mentioned that unmet needs. So people are also letting you know that they need a service. Is there anything in particular that you are hearing that we don't have or we need?
Well,
what are the top few things?
Again, it's really housing.
It's housing. Okay.
And then I would say a distant second, although significant, especially these days, would be access to mental health care. There's been such an explosion of, I think, just the recognition of need that it really has outstripped the resources for the number of therapists that are even available. We've had a hard time recruiting therapists. County is having a hard time. It's going to take us 5 to 7 years to really, I think, catch up because it takes a long time to prepare therapists through school. I used to be one. So I would say, but housing, and then I would say mental health needs next. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you for sharing, and wonderful to hear about the upcoming 2.0, 2.1, and I worked in LA
CIE,
County in this whole person care initiative, and so that sounds like
it's an outgrowth of that. Absolutely.
Great to hear that's happening, all that coordination between the agencies in Ventura County. So,
yeah, great.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I have one quick question.
Sure.
Just what is the, return on second contacts from people who call 211, that continuing contact and their actual seeking out of further services?
Yeah, sort of following through with the referrals, and it's pretty high. The barriers would usually be on the receiving end, where an agency may not have any openings at that time, or if it's rental assistance, it runs out at the early parts of the month, that kind of thing. But otherwise, we get responses back from folks, because we also ask people, what was your experience of 211? Would you refer us to a friend or family member? And we get 96, 98% saying, yes, this was helpful for me. What is interesting, though, I would say, is that sometimes we'll have folks call when they're going through a crisis, like I need housing or I need food, or there's a domestic violence crisis or a suicide crisis. And then we resolve that, we get them to the right help for that. Then a couple months later, now they know this is a resource, they'll call back. Well, they're not calling for a crisis then. They're saying, hey, is there any counseling for my kids? Well, of course you would ask for that. You just went through a crisis 2 months ago, and now you've got your housing sorted, and now there's the next need. So we do see that kind of progression from emergency to more stability kinds of needs, and we can see that through the referral patterns. Yeah.
Thank you.
Good question.
Yeah, thank you very much, Erica. That was just a wealth of information, and I've always been aware of 211, but it's so detailed. I appreciated it. And having come out of the county system myself, very frequently, we would see different entities, different departments dealing with a client or an individual, and the office next door had no idea they were being dealt with.
It's all well-meaning, but it's hard to coordinate. Yeah.
So, with regard on one of the first slides, you indicated that one of the specific areas that you work with is the justice services.
Yes.
Okay. So, with that in mind, are you following or tracking the court care program that's eventually going to be hopefully enhanced or implemented here in Ventura County?
Yes.
And will the 211 be involved in that as well? Mental health?
Excuse me. Not directly in terms of the operations of that, but again, we have a long-standing relationship with the courts. Several dedicated programs with the DA's office that are really designed towards preventing folks from going into jail or incarceration in the first place. So they're well aware of 211 as a resource. And again, that's sort of the beauty of the idea that started in 1998 in Atlanta. It was just a easy 3-digit number, not an 800 number, this or that. And I couldn't tell you what my son's number is now. It's in my phone, right? So we don't remember that anymore. And having that 3-digit number is really just the best way.
Great.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Eric.
Thank you.
Move on to item number 8C, Information Technology Update, Apex Technology Management.
hope. Okay. Good evening. How is everybody this evening? My name is Toby Osborne, and I am the city's virtual chief information officer, and I come from Apex Technology. We're out of Redding, California. And with me tonight over in the back corner is your lead engineer, our senior engineer, who does all of the networking for your network. I think it's really important to think of this as a partnership. We're not working for you, we're partnering with you. And we can only be successful if we're all partnering together and everybody at every level throughout the organization is doing their job to make the organization successful and to make the network safe and secure. So we're really looking forward to building a better tomorrow by partnering over the next couple of years to stabilize and solidify everything so that you can continue to do what's best for you and we can align your strategic plan with your IT plan. We took over this network about 9 months ago. We inherited a situation where there was a gentleman, you had a single point of failure. You had one person that did everything IT related. Like, that's not entirely fair. Erica was doing a lot of the IT work herself. She has bigger, better, important things to do. So you really need a group of professionals to come in here and solidify and stabilize the entire network. He left us with very incomplete documentation. Brent spent hours trying to find passwords, log into devices, break devices so he could get into the devices because the stuff just wasn't there. It wasn't well planned out. Really what you need is a technology plan that provides what you're going to do today, what you're going to do tomorrow, and what you're going to do in the future, and have that roadmap so that you know exactly what you're doing every step of the way. We had unstable devices, we had things that just didn't work, things that were broken, that staff came to us in the first couple of weeks and said, can you just fix this please? It used to work this way, we need it to work that way. So we spent the last 6+ months working towards what our goal is with each organization we work for. And that's to create a stable network, an efficient network, and a secure network. In reality, what that boils down to is things should just work. When you get onto your computer, you should be able to pull up a PowerPoint presentation and it should just work. If it doesn't, that's why we're here. We have a 4-pronged attack for our service. You have somebody like myself who works with management to build the plan, to determine what we're going to do and to fill in the gaps. Then we have the tools. We enable all the tools, the remote monitoring tools for the computers that can patch the devices, that can tell us what's going on the devices, and allows us to deploy stuff out to the devices, updates, and different things like that. And then when something doesn't work, I just mentioned, we have a remote help desk. Brent and Tim, who are the 2 senior engineers, are up above, but we have 10 to 15 people on the help desk at any given time. We have a small group of people that deal mostly with the city governments. So when I talk to the staff here, usually they're talking to a couple of different people, so they have a familiar voice, a familiar person that they're dealing with all the time. The great thing about the staff and the way we're set up, Erica has my personal cell phone number. Erica has Brent's personal cell phone number. So if they can't get into the help desk, they can't get what they need, they have a direct line of communication to both of us, and we can facilitate and help make that problem go away in the end. And if we can't do things, so most of the stuff we do remote. We remote manage all the computers, remote patch the computers, we remote update the computers. So about 90 to 95% of everything can be done remote. When it can't be done remote, we have a local technician in Santa Clarita, Nick Hardy, and we can deploy him on site. I think he's already been on site 12 to 20 hours, probably in the last month or so. And so it's a really important mix of things that we offer. The on-site support, we're also here quarterly. We're contractually obligated to be here. And it's actually really important for us to be here because we get the opportunity to speak to all the staff, see what they're seeing, hear what they're seeing. The other, this is an evolving process. We're trying to create a culture. The old culture was you had one IT provider who came in, was kind of here, wasn't here, did some things, didn't fix other things. So we're really trying to encourage all of the staff members, regardless of how small the problem is, create a help desk ticket. Pick up the phone, give us a call. We can solve those problems. The bigger thing is if you don't solve those problems from the beginning, they can become bigger problems. So we're really trying to change that culture and encourage everybody to think of us as a team member. We want to help them. They need to call us. We can help facilitate any issue that they have. So as I mentioned, a couple of the things that we've done over the last 6 months, we've been patching all the computers. We've been patching the network devices, patching all of the software. It's really important to stay up to date so that there aren't any vulnerabilities in the network. We have a super great help desk. Like I said, we're there all the time. They're super friendly, and they really want to help you. They think of you as a team member. They think of every person in this organization as somebody on their team, and that's really the only way it can work is if we're all working together. We do monthly maintenance on the network. Brent gets a list of all the things that went through. We research and we get on top of anything that might need our attention. And then we're down here quarterly. We've done Tim, who's Brent's right-hand man, is really good at pre-RA requests, and he's really on top of that, and I think we've helped solidify that process here at the city, which is obviously a very important function within the city. Just a couple other things we've done. We've deployed 6 new workstations to the city remotely and with some of the help desk and our local agent. We deployed a new historian SCADA server here at City. It hit City Hall. It's actually about 20 feet away from us. And as I mentioned, we're just getting things back to a standard, getting them back to working the way they always should have. And then again, getting the help desk involved with the staff so that when there are problems, we can fix those. And then something you all appreciate, when we signed this agreement 7 short months ago, sorry, it was for $9,100 a month. We've reduced that by $2,600 a month due to the device count that we're actually managing here on the network. We're hoping that, as you'll see here in the next few months, that we're going to be able to use some of those savings to deploy some new technological advancements, as well as some new infrastructure that'll provide better support and ongoing infrastructure for the city as they move forward. Some figures over the last 6 months. On average, we're servicing about 24 customer-generated tickets a month. So that's when somebody picks up the phone and calls in and creates a help desk ticket. That's just one part of what we do. 75% of those are dealt with immediately. They get off the phone, problem solved. Other ones we might have to research, get back to them, call into a software vendor to get some support. We also create roughly 80 tickets a month that are automated. So these are things that our remote agents pick up in the system. Some of them they're able to solve immediately. Others create tickets for somebody like Brent to look in and to solve, or to reach out to Erica and figure out what we're going to do about that. And in general, we're averaging around 50 hours of staff time working on the network a month. That doesn't include my time and Brent's time when he's here and some of the extra hours we put in. I probably put in about 20 hours a month on the account alone. And when we're here for quarterly maintenance, definitely a lot more. Something that wasn't necessarily being picked up in the past, we brought 35 threats over the last 6 months, and we removed 257 others. So those agents in the background are doing their job. We're patching the network and rolling out all the updates. So where are we going in the future? As everybody here in this room knows, you open up the newspaper, you log into the internet, you pull up Yahoo. Every day there's some new cyber threat that we're dealing with in the landscape that we're in. What our goal is and what we can do is we're always constantly evolving the tools that we utilize to monitor, the tools that we give to the end user. In any organization, the weakest link in any organization is the end user. They can always click on something, they can download something. Our goal is to provide them with all the tools that even if they do that, they're still going to be safe and secure. So we'll be rolling out 4 new tools here in the next 2 to 3 months that'll help that end user, which means helps the company in general or the city in general, and will provide them with a lot better support. A lot of this is coming based on the needs and the ever-evolving needs of cybersecurity insurance. The typical cybersecurity insurance form 2-3 years ago was 1 to 2 pages. Last year, for city governments, it was 2 to 5. This year, we've hit 8 to 10. So they're encouraging you to have these tools, requiring you to have these, and then the encouragement next year becomes the requirement. So we're constantly evolving those tools, and we'll be ever adding to that tool belt of tools that we have to help protect that network and the infrastructure that you have set up here and the information that's inside the network, which is the most important part of it. Additionally, we've got a big infrastructure project that we're working in conjunction with Erica that we're going to roll out here in the next 6 months, where we're going to increase the network segmentation, build a stronger, more stable network. The way the network works right here is we send out point-to-point signals from the top of City Hall up to Reservoir 3, over to Reservoir 4, and then back down to Public Works. And that is a critical infrastructure component for the SCADA system, which operates all of water and wastewater. So we're going to replace that hardware, make it stronger, make it more powerful, send the signals faster, and add redundancy. So if one set goes down, the other one stays up. And then we're going to add on alerting, some network alerting, so that right now we know when something's down, we just don't know what component is down. So we're going to try to add on some more alerting with some network cards and whatnot that'll give us better insight into what is actually going down. And then the goal, which is the goal for a lot of organizations, is to reduce your footprint within the organization and move a lot of the critical infrastructure to the cloud. We all know we're all working, or most people work in Microsoft 365. Microsoft 365 used to be hosted in an Exchange server either on your premises or with an IT provider. Now it's all up in the cloud. It's the way of the world. Springbrook, which is one of your tools that's used here, is hosted in the cloud. As we move more and more of those resources to the cloud, we can reduce the footprint here and eliminate a lot of those big, huge infrastructure costs that replacing a server is a very costly expense. I know there's ongoing expenses for cloud-based services, but it tends to be cheaper on an ongoing basis, and it's an easier thing to budget. And then we're looking to roll out Intune, which is a great way to roll out devices. You can roll out mobile devices, cell phones, which gives us a lot more control over the cell phone. The organization then has control over it because it's not the user's phone, and the same thing with laptops, which will be great in the future. Basically, what we'll do is we will call Dell or call one of our support partners. We'll order the device. It gets sent straight here to the city. Erica tells us ahead of time, or a staff member tells us that this employee is going to need this service, this service, this service, this service. We load it all up in the cloud in the background. They open up the computer, they sign into the computer, it deploys all of the tools that they need. So the computer doesn't have to get sent to us. It saves time, it saves money, and it's the great way to move forward into the future. And it simplifies the whole process that now could take 2 to 3 weeks, and it really is just a day in the background of telling him which programs to need, ordering the computer, and 2 or 3 days later it's here. So again, the whole process that we're going through is streamlining, and if we can work together as a group, as a team, we can create a stable, efficient, secure network that works and that has support when it doesn't work. I think that's all I had for you tonight. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Moving on to item number 6, public comments. My first public speaker is Tracy Stewart. We have a 3-minute time limitation. After 30 seconds, the yellow light comes on.
Perfect. I won't take too much of your time. Thank you so much for having me this evening. I am a resident of Fillmore, I guess proper, if you use that term. I actually live in the Sespe Creek. I'm here today to talk about the railroad storage cars that are stored along Old Telegraph Road. I don't know how many of you have driven that recently to see really how it's devalued our landscape. I was sitting here looking at this beautiful mural here of the mountains, and I don't know if you realize this, but if you drive along Old Telegraph Road, you can no longer see the mountains from Old Telegraph Road because of the rail cars. So my hope today is just to seek your assistance and help in trying to work with Ventura County Transportation Commission along with Sierra Northern Railway to help us get those rail cars moved and give us back our beautiful agriculture, residential area that we have come to know and love. I find it a little ironic that Sierra Northern and I believe it's Sunbelt Railways has brought in these rail cars, and they're encouraging people from Los Angeles to come up and see the beautiful orchards and the groves. However, they've defaced basically our neighborhood, and we don't get to see that anymore. We get to see their ugly rail cars. So, yeah. Does anybody have any questions for me? That's pretty much where I'm at. And I know I'm not alone in it. There's quite a few people in my neighborhood, and we've all shared, and we're all working as hard as we can to be heard by Ventura County Transportation Commission. Sierra Northern Railway wants nothing to do with us, which we're not surprised. But we're working hard to try to do what we can to get those rail cars moved and get our beautiful landscape back. Thank you.
I'm going to let Carrie Brogy, who's our VCTC representative, respond to that briefly.
Yeah,
We can't talk and discuss it, but we can discuss it briefly.
Right, and as you're aware, there are several people in the community who are really staying on top of this and looking for ways to come to a resolution on this issue. So, but thank you. And I apologize we can't ask questions or discuss the matter with the speakers at the podium during public comment. So thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
I should turn my microphone on. Next speaker is Cami Pinsack. Same 3 minutes and then 30 seconds. The yellow light will come on.
Okay.
Okay? Oops, I got to reset it. There you go.
I was going to say, I get 15 seconds extra.
Yeah. No, you got 2.
Good evening. Thank you, Mr. Mayor and City Council members. My name is Cami Pinsack, and I am here tonight representing Ventura County Coastal Association of Realtors. I am the president-elect for the organization. This April marks the 55th anniversary of the Fair Housing Act, Title VIII of the Civil Rights Act of 1968, and Fair Housing Month across the country. As Realtors, we are committed to highlighting the Fair Housing Act by continuing to address discrimination in our community, to support programs that will educate the public about the right to equal housing opportunities, and to plan partnership efforts with other organizations to help assure every one of their rights to fair housing. Even today, hundreds, if not thousands, of realtors from across the state convened in Los Angeles to broaden their education about fair housing with breakout sessions that included working with people with disabilities, what rental property owners need to know about fair housing, appraisal discrimination, and many other sessions that really broaden our education statewide. And this brings me to why I'm here tonight. While the process of finding and buying a home has certainly changed over the last several decades, and generally for the better, except for the paperwork, more than 50 years after the passage of the Fair Housing Act, discrimination persists, and many communities remain segregated. we request a proclamation from this City Council recognizing April as National Fair Housing Month, as you all join us in a year-long commemoration of the Fair Housing Act in Fillmore, and urge all citizens to wholeheartedly recognize this celebration throughout the year. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker is Brandy Hollis.
Hi, you guys. I'm here to speak about the homeless once again. I want to clarify something that was announced at the last meeting during City Council comments on March 28th regarding the Todd Road facility. I was actually working yesterday in Ventura with CMH's social worker, Chris, who is going to be the permanent social worker at the Todd Road facility. Now, for somebody to get help and access at the Todd Road facility, it's not going to be open bed, so nobody off the street is going to be able to go into a bed. It's for people that are only currently incarcerated, and they have to also not only be incarcerated, but they have to be identified. So somebody has to take their time and their effort and their energy or care enough to identify them as needing that additional help, which doesn't necessarily get done. So I wanted to, one, clarify that. Also to CMH social worker Chris works once again in conjunction with Dr. Carrington, who is requesting through me, because I work with him every single Monday, to be put on the agenda. He'd love to show you guys how you can actually save money with some addiction medicine. Once again, you guys all have this phone number. I've given the card to Dave Rollins. Are we not addressing the overdose that happened in our Vaughn's bathroom just a few Sundays ago?
You
It seems to be.
You want to do it in the next 1 hour, 1 minute and 31 seconds.
Yeah, right. But NORCAN, does anybody know where to get it? I know not all deputies are authorized to carry it. It's not available. If one of your kids smokes some marijuana that's laced with, unfortunately, fentanyl, they could be overdosing on the streets, and really there's not much access to it. And while we're on the topic, 211, has anybody actually tried to call 211 in a mental health emergency or to help with the homeless? That whole ride thing, and then you see how it turned to a bus schedule. 211, while great and a great resources, it's like calling information or Google. I could do that all day long. So it's not really, it's great for information, but don't call it in a mental health emergency, because you'll get phone numbers. Also, the drug use down by the riverbed. A lot of people want to come in and complain about, all the homeless in the riverbed. Has anybody addressed the drug issue? I know I turned in pictures of actual place where people are selling drugs. There's stolen goods. There's stolen goods in the riverbed. There's people that sit out in cars along River Street selling drugs. Homeless come up, buy drugs, go back in. And also, I think Fillmore needs a reunification program, kind of like Ventura has. Last Monday, I was able to see somebody who was stuck here that needed to go home to Oregon. Within 30 minutes, Ventura was able to provide him a train ticket. He's home, and then we provided him with resources back in Oregon, and he's doing great. I really think that Fillmore should consider that, or actually take the time, City Council, to meet with us and everybody else on my team that's working, and you guys are all included in the email, so you have all their email addresses. And sorry to blow up your email, but mine goes off all day, all night long, and we're trying to do something. And if the rest of you don't know who we are, that would be
Can
me.
you please wrap it up, Brandy?
Yep, Spirit of Santa Paula, who's actually taking people, putting them in the beds, and Project Understanding. So, and then once again, our whole homeless team, and that meets out in Ventura, which is coming here on the 20th of this month. Thank you.
Next speaker is Guadalupe Garcia.
Hi, good evening. My name is Guadalupe Garcia, like they mentioned it. I'm here for that letter, that notice that you guys sent to every...
That item's going to be on the agenda, so you need to fill out a card to speak on it.
Okay.
I mean, it's 9E, it's 9A now, but we just need, you just help her. Thank you. Thank you. We're going to move on to Item number 7, City Council reports, recommendations, and comments. Anybody?
I do. Thank you, Mayor. It's okay if I go. Thank you. So, again, we know we're in April, which is the City of Fillmore is going to have their Earth Day celebration on April 22nd. It'll be from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. And actually, again, we're announcing it here within Fillmore, but it has gone out on a flyer from the Ventura County Energy Alliance, along with 2 other days that are happening, one in Oxnard and one in Thousand Oaks. So the Fillmore's Earth Day promotes eco-friendly habits and supports Earth-conscious organizations and businesses. Attendees will enjoy a day of learning, shopping, chalk art, and local food trucks. So we hope that you can all come out on, that's April 22nd. And just to keep speaking a little bit more about promoting the Green Business Program. So we've had Mr. Javier Salcedo come out before, and in our latest announcement, this is regarding the Ventura County Regional Energy Alliance. We have some statistics about those businesses thus far in Ventura County who've been certified green. And so far, there's 73 total certifications, and 64 are on their way. So more and more businesses are certifying green. Let's see here. They have statistics that, by certifying green, it's like planting more than 1,500 acres of trees. Let's see here. There's been enough energy saved to run 180 homes for a year. Let's see. And also, it's equivalent to 200 gallons of fresh drinking water. It saved 7.1 million gallons of water saved. Again, this is in certifying green. So encouraging local businesses to contact the city. I know that we have Javier's information, and also local businesses will get recognized for certifying green. It's a process, and I know that Javier and the Energy Alliance team are happy to help the local businesses to get through that process. So something to keep in mind for Earth Day. Are we doing comments too right now, or just updates?
Comments, John?
Oh, comments as well? Okay, great. Let me just pull up my comments.
Committee, commission, board
Oh,
reports.
okay, so sorry. So that was my reports. Okay, all right, go ahead.
Anybody else?
Yeah, I just wanted, for clarification, I think it was last council meeting, possibly the one before, where I had suggested that we evaluate the proclamations, the calendar for annual proclamations. And I'd like to, it's not on the agenda now, I've requested it be removed only because it seems like a moot point since our mayor makes a decision on which proclamations we're going to handle over the upcoming year. So just point of clarification.
I'll concur.
Okay, that's fine with me.
Okay.
I'm fine
Thank
staying with our usual
Yeah,
method.
just that's what I figured, to
Yeah.
give each mayor,
Okay.
their
Since
discretion.
we're wasting time.
Yep. Item number 8, consent calendar. Do I have
Sorry.
a motion?
Oh, sorry, Mayor. Before we move on, can we
Okay.
do comments or recommendations? I'm sorry. I guess I was clarifying if we were all going to do reports out and
I'm kind of
then.
confused since we flipped it out of order now.
And usually we do a round. Does anyone have any reports out from
And then
the
we go to
committees?
this, but we've moved it
Okay.
after public comments.
Chris has messed us up.
Okay.
I know, Chris has messed us up.
It seems that all of us agreed at some point.
Okay. Any more reports? No? Okay, can I go on to a recommendation?
Yes.
Okay, great. Thank you, Mayor. So in the spirit, again, speaking of Earth Day and Earth Month, the city's event that's coming up, and all of us being more educated and cognizant of the steps that we can take individually and as a community to be more green and to reduce our energy footprint, I'd like to see if we can schedule just an educational presentation, and actually from 2 organizations. I'd love to have Southern California Edison come and talk about their green program, and also a presentation from Clean Power Alliance. They're an alternative energy provider. They serve 8 incorporated cities plus the unincorporated area of the county. Now, last year around this time, the council decided not to move forward with a feasibility study regarding Clean Power Alliance, and totally, understand that, and that was the will of the council. However, our council wasn't able to actually get information. We never got an educational presentation about Clean Power Alliance or Southern California Edison and their green rate program. And we're all customers of Southern California Edison. So I would like to see if we could have an educational presentation in the future from both of them to talk about their program. I believe Southern California Edison, their green rate program is so popular, I think it had to be put on pause at some point last year, but I've heard that they may be restarting it. So I thought that maybe that could be some information that we can share and, for our Fillmore residents to get more information about. So I just wanted to put that and see if our fellow council members were interested in a presentation, not a action item, but just a presentation.
Anybody?
Do you have any folks who are willing to?
We got two.
Okay.
I have a question. Have you already coordinated? Like, was this something that they already have prepared?
Well, I think they would have them prepared. Like, if we invited them to come, they would do a presentation on their programs.
Okay. But something that we would just contact them versus having staff generate something and invite, like, more just of an extension of an invitation for things that they already
do, that they already have, talked to with other cities.
Okay.
Yeah.
I would be okay with them making a presentation, I think.
Okay.
Okay. Yep.
All right. Okay. Thank you.
That's what I said. We had three.
Okay. Great. Thank you. Thank you, council members.
Can we move on to item number 8, consent calendar? Do I have a motion?
I move to approve the consent calendar.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second the motion.
I have a motion. I have a second. All in favor, say aye.
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 Motion carries. We'll move on to item number 9E, which is moved to 9A. I'll pull my agenda up. Proposition 218, hearing for water and sewer rates for 2023 through 2027.
Good evening, Council, City of Fillmore residents. Tonight we propose to have the Proposition 218 hearing regarding the water and sewer rates. The city last completed Proposition 218 hearing process on December 18th, 2016 with the adoption of the new maximum monthly water service rates, and the city needs to complete the Proposition 218 hearing process again for the current year and subsequent 4 years. The city's consultant, Wildan Financial Services, completed the comprehensive water sewer utility rate study on October 17th, and the report was presented to City Council on January 24th. The report is attached as Attachment 3. The report is intended to justify the rates to be enacted following a Proposition 218 hearing for a 5-year period. At that meeting, it was discussed that we would have the hearing on the April 11th meeting, so here we are. I would like to bring up Chris Fisher to discuss that, the findings and the report.
Thank you, Troy.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the council staff. Chris Fisher with Wildan Financial Services, and privileged to be here with you again this evening to cover mostly the same information that I shared with you back in January, just a recap of that information for folks that are here hearing this for the first time. So we're going to go through the results of the water rate study, talk about the objectives first. So the primary goals of the study, and any rate study for that matter, are to ensure that the rates that are being paid by residents and customers of the utilities provide for full cost recovery of the expenditures that the utilities incur to provide those services. The rates that are charged to customers must be based on the cost of service and must be equitable. We hope that they're administratively easy to handle for staff and for residents to understand. The rates and the financial plan are based on a 5-year projection of all of the utility costs, and we'll get into a little bit more detail about that. And most important, the rates and the whole process must comply with the provisions of Proposition 218, which in California governs water, wastewater, and solid waste, among other things, but water and wastewater is what we're talking about tonight. So factors to take into account with the development of the financial plan. We developed a comprehensive financial plan for both the water and the wastewater utilities. As with just about everything else going on, operating costs and personnel costs are going up over time, and the operating costs include things like equipment, supplies, power, pumping, treatment, both of water provided to customers as well as wastewater collected from them. Personnel costs is pretty self-explanatory. And then also planned capital expenditures. And as is most often the case, capital expenditures are the largest ticket item. As you know, you run a city, so you know that capital items are not cheap. These are things like water line replacements, a new water well, sewer line replacements, and replacing existing sewer membranes. And much of this, with the exception of the water well, is replacing aging infrastructure that has been in the ground for many, many decades. And without being replaced, it's subject to increasing vulnerability for breakages. So here's just a snapshot of the capital improvement program. You can see over the next 10 years, it's spread out. The first 5 years, there's about $8.3 million in capital projects. About 64% of that is attributable to the water utility and 34% to the sewer utility. Over the subsequent 5 years, that flip-flops, and about the same percentage now is for sewer and about 33% for water. The total amount of capital projects does go down by about half in that subsequent 5 years. So let's talk about how the current state of each of the two utilities to understand what the financial projections look like under the current rates, under the existing rates, and then identify, to the extent there are any financial shortfalls that may exist, and then that might drive the need to increase revenue. So let's look at water first, and there's 3 graphs here, same as we looked at before. The top graph is the overall annual financial results, projected operating results for the water utility. The light blue bars represent the revenue, the dark blue bars represent expenditures, and so you can see in each of the 5 years the revenues are more than expenditures. The black line represents the net results. You can see it gradually declines over the 5 years, but still is a positive number each year. On the bottom left side is the days cash on hand, and that's cash held in reserve for things like contingencies or emergencies, operating efficiency, being able to pay bills and let contracts have cash on hand to do that rather than wait. You can see it starts out a little over double the target, which is about a year's worth of operating expenses. And then we're going to spend that cash down on some of the capital projects over the 5-year period. It's still going to be above the target financial policy level, but we're going to spend that cash down as opposed to eliminate the need to increase rates. And then the debt service coverage graph on the bottom right represents a covenant that's made to lenders who lend the city money for capital projects or other needs for the utilities. They require that there be a certain amount of coverage above net operating results to ensure that debt service can be paid. The typical minimum requirement is 1.25. The policy target is 1.5 to allow some flexibility and to improve the creditworthiness of the city. And you can see in each of the 5 years, the light blue lines are above the dark target line. Decreases slightly over the 5 years, but still well above the target. The sewer side looks pretty similar. It's a good picture. The operating results in each of the 5 years, the revenues are exceeding expenditures, and the black line representing net results is positive. The days cash on hand is right at the target level for each of the 5 years, and debt service coverage is also right at the target line for each of the 5 years. So positive picture there for sewer. So the next step is to talk about cost of service, and this is really a key fundamental principle in California regarding water and wastewater rates. Prop 218 was passed and requires that all rates charged for water, wastewater, solid waste service have to be based on the cost of providing the service. The rates cannot exceed the cost of providing the service, and they have to be proportionate for each of the different groups of customers, whether it's residential, commercial, retail, whatever, that each group of customers and each customer pays an amount that's proportionate to their use. So it's important to understand. So the objectives for the cost of service analysis is, first, we have to understand what the total amount of revenue that's needed to satisfy the needs of each of the two utilities, and we'll talk a little bit more about that. We'll talk about the cost of service methodology, how costs are allocated between different types of costs that are incurred by each of the two utilities, and then how they're allocated to each class of customers within those two utilities. So there's three basic questions that we need to ask in any rate structure or any rate study in order to determine the structure of rates and the cost of service analysis. So the first is how much revenue is needed. What's the overall amount of revenue necessary for each of the sewer and water utilities to ensure that they have the money they need to pay all the bills and keep the utilities running and provide for future planning of capital projects and things like that. So that's the purpose of the financial plan. We developed that financial plan to take a holistic, comprehensive, deep look at all of the costs and project them for the 5-year period that, for which rates are going to be set. Then we need to figure out who's incurring the cost, which customers within the water utility, within the sewer utility are causing the utility to incur costs, at what proportion compared to other types of customers, and then assign costs out to the customer classes in proportion to those costs. And then finally, what do the rates need to be to recover those costs? And that's what we're going to talk about next. So the difference between revenue and rates is the revenue is the aggregate amount of dollars, if you will, that needs to be collected for the utility. So there's an aggregate amount of revenue that the water utility needs and an aggregate amount of revenue that the wastewater utility needs. And then the rates are the amounts charged to customers within the city to collect that revenue. So the rates may be different for different customers depending upon the cost of service analysis and ensuring that each of those customer groups pay their fair share based on the proportionate benefit or proportionate cost that they cause the utilities to incur. So the rates are made up of a base charge, which is a fixed charge based on the size of the meter, and we'll talk about that, and then the usage charge, which is sometimes called a volumetric charge or volume charge, and that's based upon the amount of consumption on the water side or the amount of discharge on the wastewater side. If appropriate. So first, let's talk about the revenue adjustments. As you saw the pictures on the graphs, those were positive pictures, and so there is no need to change the revenue collection or increase the rates as a result of a need for increased revenue for either of the two utilities. So that's good news, and pretty rare these days. Most utilities are increasing rates substantially. So in the case of Fillmore, the aggregate amount of revenue that needs to be collected is not changing. Here's a snapshot of the revenue requirements. You see the water and wastewater utilities in the two columns. The total gross requirement for the water utility is about $4.3 million, and that's made up of operating and maintenance costs, debt service costs, and then other expenditures and transfers. For wastewater, the gross requirement is about almost $7.3 million, again, made up of those same categories, operating and maintenance, debt service, and other expenditures and transfers. That's offset by revenues from some other miscellaneous fees. And so the bottom line there is the amount of net revenue that needs to be collected, each from the water utility and the wastewater utility. So now we have to take that requirement for each of the utilities and allocate it out to customers within the two utilities based on Proposition 218 requirements, industry standards, and the legal community's guidance as to how to do this to comply with Prop 218. As you may or may not know, Prop 218 is sort of vague in the way that it's worded. It doesn't provide a specific roadmap of how to do rates, how to calculate rates, how to do a cost of service analysis. It provides guidelines, and so it's kind of an ever-evolving practice where kind of the legal community and the community of rate consultants that do this kind of work are constantly evaluating how to best to do cost of service analysis and develop rates. You may recall, probably about 8 or 10 years ago now, there was a lawsuit in Orange County with San Juan Capistrano where they were sued based on their tiered rate structure. The immediate aftermath of that was a fear that rates of that type were not legal anymore. The legal community evolved over the past 6 years, 8 years or so, and now tiered rates are in fact legal and are used in some communities. Just an example of how it's a constantly evolving area of practice. So recognizing that different customers place different demands upon each of the two systems, we allocate costs based on the following factors. First, we look at which costs are fixed and which costs are variable and allocate those to a fixed charge and a variable charge. We look at the number of customers within each customer class, so commercial, residential, industrial to the extent there are. We look at the total amount of flows, both for water and wastewater, within each customer class, and then look at peak demand usage within each of those classes. and then we allocate costs based on the necessity to serve each of those. So we first take all of the costs in the budget for water, and we break those up into costs for pumping, transmission, distribution, costs for taking care of customer service, and for administration. And then we take those costs and figure out which ones are attributable to serving the base need for all customers, which costs are necessary to serve max day needs, in other words, which customers or which days cause the system to be run at a maximum, and then which hour within those max days drive peak costs, and then allocate other costs that are fixed based to each of the different groups of customers. And then sewer is sort of similar. The costs are a little bit different now. They're collection costs instead of distribution costs. They're treatment costs, pumping administration. And again, we classify those as to which ones are necessary to support volume, capacity of the system, treatment of different strengths of effluent, and then costs for taking care of customers. So now let's take a look at how the rates came out for both the water and wastewater utility. You see here are the proposed water rates. The top part of the table is what we call the fixed charge or meter charge. That's a charge paid by each customer based on the size of their meter. And it scales up from the smaller meters to the larger meters based on the concept that the larger meter can place greater demands on the system, and so system ultimately has to be sized to serve demands of customers based on their ability to draw water through their meter. And so the 5/8 and 3/4 inch are the typical residential size meters. Those are $25, and then they go on up to the 10-inch meter, which I don't believe the city even has any that large, but there is a charge for that. And then you have the volumetric rate for each 100 cubic feet of water. 100 cubic feet of water is 748 gallons. So for each 748 gallons, the customer pays $3.14. So the big change here, and again, this is to comply with Prop 218, is that there's no basic flow allotment in that base charge. Previously, there was an allotment of water, 1,000 units of water in the base charge. That's not compliant with Prop 218. As you'll see in one of the subsequent graphs here, essentially that results in some customers paying for water they're not using. And so in order to comply with the cost of service requirements of Prop 218, you have to have a volumetric rate that charges for each bit of water that a customer is using and no more than they're using and no less than they're using. And the sewer rates are staying the same. The residential rate is a flat charge, $103.36. The non-residential rate, their base charge is $42.64. There's also a change there. For the non-residential only, they had a base flow allotment included in their rate, which again, for the same reason under Proposition 218 and not being compliant if you have flow that is essentially not being charged for or flow not being, that is used but not being charged for. So here's what the changes look like comparing current bills or existing bills to the proposed bills. So you see for the lower end user, so the columns there are the typical meter size, which is 5/8 or 3/4 inch. That's a typical residential meter. The second column is different representative amounts of monthly flow. And then you have the existing charge and the proposed charge and the difference. So you see for the lower end users, all the way up to 500 cubic feet of water per month, bills are going down. And that's because, so again, the rates aren't going up. The difference is now there's no essentially free flow included in the base charge or base flow included in the base charge. So the volumetric rate now applies to all use pulled through the meter that's read at the meter. And so you see essentially what that 1 through 500 cubic feet is telling you is that those customers were paying for water that they weren't using. So if they use, the 400 unit, they're going to pay $5.26 less now than they were paying previously. The 1200 unit is about the average based on an examination of historical records and historical customer billing records. So they would have an $11 difference in their bill, and then it goes down from there now because all of the volumetric use is being charged at the lower volumetric rate. Remember, the volumetric rate did go down. So the customers using more water are going to see a reduction in their bill. Sewer side, there's no change, so the rate for our residential customers is still going to be $103.36. So there's no difference, and oops. What happened here? Here we go. So the combined bill is essentially just the changes on the water side. This is just a combined bill for water and wastewater both. So that the current bill is about $154 for a customer using 1,200 cubic feet, The new bill will be a little over $166, and that's a difference of about $11. So here is a comparison showing Fillmore and some neighboring or similar communities in Ventura County. So the red dashed line represents the average of all the communities looked at, and then you can see each bar represents that community. So Fillmore is essentially staying in its lane where it was, the bill going up slightly, but still a little higher than Port Hueneme and less than Santa Paula. So no real change in kind of how it ranks compared to the neighbors. So this is just what the five-year plan of rates looks like. Again, the rates aren't going up. So once we aligned the rates with the cost of service analysis to comply with Prop 218 in the first year, then they're staying there for the 5 years. They're not going to be going up. Each of the 5 years, the rates are not going up. So you can see, the 5-year rate plan, the rates are the same each of the 5 years. Here it is on the sewer side, same thing. Now all customers are paying the same rate in each of the 5 years, so it's not going up. And this is just a graphic representation and a tabular representation of the 5-year rate path. And again, it looks similar to what I just explained. After the first year, where the bill will change as a result of all volumetric use being charged for, then the bill stays the same for each of the 5 years, assuming the usage stays the same. These financial metrics don't change, again, because we didn't change the amount of revenue that we're collecting. The revenue collection stays the same. There was no increase in revenue requirement, so the rates weren't going up per se. So the amount of revenue, this all looks the same. The blue bars are the same comparison, the light blue compared to the dark blue, and the net results, the days cash on hand, the debt service coverage are the same. And that's the numbers, kind of a lot of numbers there. I don't want to read through all those, but essentially that's just the breakdown of the revenues and the various expenditures, debt service, capital, broken out in just a little bit more detail. Sewer, similar to water, the picture is the same because, again, we're not changing the revenue that's being collected. The light blue bars still over the dark blue bars, and the net results positive for each of the 5 years. Days cash on hand staying the same, and debt service staying the same. And there's the numbers representing kind of behind those graphs as well. So the next steps are for the council to open the public hearing and receive testimony, and then conclude the public hearing, have discussion amongst yourselves, tabulate the written protests, and then if there are sufficient written protests, which means protests from a majority of the customers, then the proceedings will stop. The council can't take any further action. If there's not a written protest, then the council can discuss and if it's their pleasure, adopt and implement the rates. So you can't override the protest. You could, however, decide not to implement the changes even if there was a majority protest. That would be at your discretion based on your discussion. So that's it for the presentation. So
any questions?
Turn it back to.
I do have one question. Just was the 1,200 cubic feet, was that considered the average?
Correct.
For
yes,
customers in Fillmore? Okay.
That's correct.
Any other questions?
And I'm available the whole time, so I can come back up.
Troy, you going to get back up and speak or no? No? I go ahead and open the public hearing.
Unless you have specific questions for me, you can go ahead and open the public hearing.
I just have one quick one. Is it possible to get a copy of this PowerPoint? Okay, great.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. This is a time and place for the public hearing of the City of Fillmore water service fees and sewer service fees. I now am opening the public hearing. Has the deputy clerk received any written protests filed against the sewer and water fee increases?
Yes, Mayor, we have received 13 letters protesting the increase.
Okay. If there's anybody anyone present who wishes to address the council on this matter at hand or in protests or correspondence, if so, please come to the podium when you're called. And also, anybody who wasn't aware, they can go out in the hall and pick up a speaker card and fill it out and hand it in if you'd like to speak. Okay? First speaker is Charles Richardson, and I assume you're getting 6 minutes from somebody?
Could be 9. This lady here, this fellow here, and then me.
Okay. What was that?
It may be 9. So
okay. Well, who's your 3 then? Your additional 3. What's his name? Okay.
There's a ticket up there.
Yeah, but I don't know who's who.
Okay. Well, one's a female and then one's a male.
Walters and Madison.
Well, there's several males up here. Okay, I'll set you for 6 minutes then, okay? And when you have 30 seconds left, the yellow light will come on.
Okay. Well, I don't know where to begin now with Wildan throwing out all this information. Like 75% of the people that live in this town are Hispanic. You think they understand what the heck he was saying? I doubt it. I don't even understand it. Mr. Mayor and members of the council, my name is Charles Richardson. I live at the El Dorado Mobile Home Park, space number 218. I've been there for going on 19 years. In 2010, when the plant was built, that's all I'm going to talk about is a sanitation facility. That's all I'm interested in, $103.36 a month we've been paying since approximately 2010. I'm asking you not to vote on this tonight. I want you to hold this over until you get all the information that you need to make a considered decision. My request is that this is the third time I have asked for information regarding something that I consider very simple. And that is, what is the cost per month to operate the sanitation plant? That includes the bond repayment, maintenance, labor, electrical, sludge removal, and reserves. Put it in a list, how much it costs. Why are these costs a secret? He went through a whole lot of stuff, Wildan did, but never said what those costs represent in terms of dollars and cents. How come the council, you folks, don't know what these costs are? Have you ever asked how much does it cost to make that plant operate on a monthly basis? I know you don't know because I asked Councilmember Rogie here, and she didn't know what the costs were. So I presume the rest of you don't know either. I asked your city manager in an email dated 3/11. What I wanted was the same information. How much does it cost to operate the plant on a monthly basis? I asked him to send this email to you folks. It didn't happen, apparently. And I have not received a reply yet. I know I do not have to remind you members of this council that the city manager works for you and you work for us. And so this information belongs to me and everybody else that lives in this town so that we can make an informed decision on how much it costs to operate this plant and how much we have to pay to make that plant operational. Let me give you an example. I'll cut to the chase. In El Dorado Mobile Home Park, we pay $103.36 a month times 12. I pay you $1,240.32 a month. Now there's 345 spaces in El Dorado. That represents $42,791.04 a month that you get from El Dorado for this plant. For the next 5 years, $213,955.20 just from El Dorado. Doesn't count the rest of the people that live in this town. And I'm sure there's a few more people that live in the town that are paying this $103.36. Why do we have to continue to pay this amount? I think it's too much. We were told in 2010 that when new people moved into the area, and lots of new people have moved in, we're surrounded by million-dollar homes now in El Dorado. And they're paying $103.36 a month. Why doesn't it come down? As an example, 10 people owe $100 to somebody, so each one owes $10. Now those 20 people owe that same $100, but now they only have to pay $5. That's how I see this. Simple. I want to know what it costs to operate the plant, and I want to know how much you're collecting from all the people in this town to pay the cost of operating that plant. I want to see that, and I want you to provide that information to me and everybody else in town. I don't care about his charts. It's nice that there's a little bit of leeway there, he says. I want to see what the leeway is worth. I want to know the numbers. And it's as simple as putting up on one page, here are the costs to operate the plant on a monthly basis, and here is the amount of money we're collecting on a monthly basis. Simple as that. What's wrong with you doing that? What's wrong with not having staff or these folks from Wildan, who you're paying a lot of money to put together this fancy report, ask them to do this? Never heard a word about how much it costs to operate the plant on a monthly basis. I've never heard a word about what it costs.
Does somebody else want to give up their 3 minutes?
Okay, well, I got 3 more minutes coming too.
Okay, we got 19 seconds.
Then 3 more minutes?
19 seconds. I put 6 minutes on.
Okay, and now I have another 3 minutes with this lady here.
What's her name?
I'm going to keep mine, so I think I'd like to make a suggestion.
Okay.
Okay.
That's fine. Well, I made my point. You owe us this money. You owe us this accounting. And I want to see the accounting before you vote on it. Please consider it.
Thank you. Janelle Matson?
Hello,
Let me
good evening.
reset this real quick.
No worries.
I got to take it back the other way now. Okay,
You just give me 19 seconds.
I know. There you go.
Janelle Matson, I'm one of the residents in Fillmore. Hello, good evening. Thank you guys for doing what you do. As a suggestion, as we're going through the reporting, I'm in finance. It's easier for me to understand. I think it's harder for a lot of the residents to understand. So I don't know if this would be possible, but is it possible to have access to a report like that on the website and maybe have like a monthly representation of what those numbers look like? Perhaps that might be a good, I don't know if that's something that could be done, but perhaps that could be a good addition so that residents do have access to that information and can review it. I know being in finance myself, I would love to see the actual numbers as well. We did get to see the yearly estimates, but it would be nice to see the monthly breakdown and like exactly what those operational costs include. So that's all.
Great.
Just a suggestion. Thanks so much.
Thank you. Next speaker, Luana Brock.
Good evening, and thank you for having this hearing. I was present at I believe it was January 24th meeting where you talked with Wildan Associates, I believe it was, about the new meters. And I don't know if you made that final decision that you were going to go to the new meters, but that was sort of my understanding. So I would very much like some clarification tonight on if that was happening. And what I took from that meeting, and please, I would love to be corrected if I'm wrong, but what I heard was them talking about the fact that our current meters only capture, they called it a capture rate of 80% of what we're actually using. So when I heard that, I thought, oh, I like this new meter that when next time my water line breaks, and I've had that problem, I'll know right away. But it also told me that I'd only been being charged for about 80% of what I'd been using. And that's a concern because that to me is a rate increase. If I go from only having been charged for 80% of what I was really using to now 100%, I need to know that. And if we're looking at about a $12 a month per household on average increase, how does that meter piece play into it? And maybe I totally misunderstood, but I would like to have some clarification on that issue, please. Thank you.
Thank you.
Would we be able to address that those are two separate issues?
I think
we've done that once before.
We can
Yeah.
address it when we're going to get another
Yeah.
attempt to make
It
comments.
is a separate issue, though, not under this consideration tonight, nor has it been decided, I believe, so.
So there's no additional cost?
The meters are a completely separate
And
issue
has
that
not
has not been decided yet.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to try to read this. Derek Farage? It says garage with an F.
Yep.
You guys can all see that, look.
I've done it before, yes. Good morning, council. My name is Derek Farage. For the record, I live at 802 Central Avenue. Please accept this as my formal protest for the proposed changes to the Fillmore water, sewer, and rates. I believe there is a fundamental issue with the calculation for the sewer rates. I used to work for the county water district in Moore Park, so I know how hard public hearings are and how rate structures getting passed. So I feel for the staff, and I applaud everybody's work on it for the water. I believe the new water rates are fair and equitable and should help people now more easily budget their water usage and be able to calculate their monthly commodity billings. My main protest is for the proposed sewer rates. The old rate of $103.36, which included a volumetric rate, has been changed, which is good. It was not in compliance with Proposition 218, so I'm glad to hear that they've removed that volumetric. But we, as in Fillmore, pay significantly higher sewer rates than the city of Oxnard, Ventura, Camarillo, Simi Valley, and Moore Park, all of which have higher median household incomes, which I feel probably should be taken into account with our Fillmore rates. Moore Park has a new water treatment plant as well, and they're able to keep their sewer rates down to $29 a month. Wow. Significantly lower than $103. I believe the sewer rates need to be reevaluated again and looked at for possible refinancing or reorganizing of the bond or loans on the treatment plant. Also, has the increase in population in the Bridges community been taken into account? The gentleman said, you know, as you get more people in, that should help divvy up with economies to scale. And then what will the city do about the $3 million debt services? I haven't heard anything about that. Those are my comments. Thank you.
Thank you. I'd like to call Guadalupe. Guadalupe, I'd like to apologize to you. Came off a little gruff. It's probably your first time speaking before a council, so I just reacted. I apologize.
This is my first time talking
That's what I
here, but I've
figured.
been here in the hearings before, so it's okay.
Okay.
And excuse me, my English, still
Okay.
learning, but I'm here. I'm a resident of Fillmore. Like a lot of people, they got the letter, and they're not agree with the rate, but I just want to say, like, consider right now is not the right time. Maybe never is the time to get higher prices for everything, but this is something just the city, like a resident of Fillmore, please reconsider this. We getting higher prices, eggs, milk, rent. It's crazy right now for people with low income, like most of the people that live here in Fillmore. So I really, please listen. Maybe it's just only myself here, but there's a lot of people outside. They're afraid to come to speak to you guys. They just, okay, they're fine. They're gonna find out to pay, but I just reconsider it and don't do it to us right now, at least. Thank you very much and have a good night.
Thank you. Is there anybody else who'd like to speak? Okay. Oh, I've got one more, sorry. Joe Arano?
He's doing. He talks about that this is going to be good and this and that, but have you seen the quality of the water? It's like, it's milk that when it comes out of the pipe, you know? And it's, I don't know if it's ever been tested, if it has a lot of like bad chemicals in it, but I'm not going to pay for that type of water, pay more money. And I'm pretty sure nobody else wants to do either. That's all I have to say.
Thank you. Okay, with that, I'd like to ask, does any council member have any comments or questions? I think we probably have a load of questions. Who wants to start?
I do know that information was passed to council about some of the questions about sewer. Dave, I know you have some information about that. Would you be able to present that? Because I'm not an expert on it, but or Troy.
As far as the overall the bonds or
the overall bonds numbers, the information was provided.
So yeah, I have annual numbers, but I mean, Chris had also presented some annual numbers. But in 2021, 2022, the annual cost to maintain the plant was roughly 1.8 million, and that source comes from our budget, which is published on our website. The owed amount on the sewer bonds is almost 45 million, 44.9 million. And the 2021, 2022 debt service cost is 3 million. And also those are published figures from our website.
Can I stop you for a second?
Yeah.
We had another speaker card come in on Annette Sula. You want to speak on this item, Annette?
You think that helps? Good evening, City Council. My name is Annette Sula. Most of you know me. Here's the thing for me on this issue. Years and years and years and years we've been told we're going to get a new sewer system, it's going to make things better, it's going to make things cheaper, we're getting more people in the community, that's going to bring everybody's rates down. There's a real issue of integrity here between what we're being told and what's happening. We keep being told that things are going to, and I remember when I first moved here, my realtor said, oh, and pretty soon that 126 is going to be 4 lanes. It took like 10 years. So, and so I didn't think that was a lot of integrity right there with my realtor. So I'm saying, if you want the community to feel like you're giving us true and accurate information, then I'd like to see you keep your words a little bit better. Thank you.
Okay. Go back to Troy. Sorry, Troy.
No worries.
It was a last minute slipping.
It's all good. We didn't close the hearing.
Right,
So.
Exactly.
Did you have other questions related to the sewer?
I think that it would be helpful to see a breakdown by month of what it costs to actually operate the plant on a monthly basis and what the income is on a monthly basis. I think that's going to be easier for the community to grasp and see it in numbers versus in charts. I think the charts look great. And I really, like someone mentioned, I appreciate it when I see the one color a little bit higher, which means we're bringing in more revenue than we're spending, just to keep it a little bit above our debt. But I think that would go a long way to, I think, accommodating and appeasing some of the questions that we're getting from the community. So, and then I had a question for you or for Tiffany or Dave. With regard to the protests, what's considered a number where we reach that threshold?
It's more than half of all the users.
Okay.
So we currently have 446 or 447, or I'm sorry, 4,046 or 4,047 meters. So we would need 2,024 protests.
Yeah, so.
What was the number again, please?
2,020
meters.
I'm sorry?
About 4,047.
Meters? 4,047.
Okay, thank you.
And I do want to also point out, there seems to be an initial thought by a lot of the people that have received a letter in the mail, and my husband is included, looked at it and initially thought, hey, everything's going up in price, which is not the case. I mean, it looks like the sewer is going to stay the same, and I know everybody wishes it would go down because that's what they were told was going to happen. That preceded our council here. I don't want to, be defensive on that, but I do want to point out that those promises were made by people that were here long before we were here. So from this point out, I do want to be able to be candid and answer detailed questions as much as possible. And if it means putting in numbers as opposed to, graphs or charts, then I think that's something that we certainly could obligate or oblige the community in doing.
Chris, do you have those numbers handy? I mean, I know you had full annual numbers, but do you have monthly numbers?
Absolutely.
So we did have the breakdown on one of the slides, and I probably just went through too fast. So the first summary of the cost was here. So for the wastewater plant, the total operating maintenance cost is about $3.9 million per year. So on a monthly basis, that's about $323,000 a month. $323,000 per month. The total, when you include the debt service, so there you see the debt service, the $3 million that Troy mentioned, that's another cost for the wastewater utility. And there's obviously more detail behind that operation and maintenance number, and I think that's what y'all are asking for, is a little bit more detail, what's in that O&M number. But that at least gives you an idea of what the annual figure is. So the total annual figure to operate the wastewater utility, including payment of debt service, is 7.3. That's the number there in bold in the middle of the column, 7.3 million. So which works out to about $604,000 per month. There's a little bit more detail on this slide. If we had all of the detail in here, it would be slides and slides long. But so here, that's water. So for sewer, well, it's not a whole lot. You see it's probably too little small for people to see. But so the total O&M expenses, again, that's for each of the years, $7.2 million in the second to left column. And if you work your way down through there, you see the debt service, also cost for capital outlay. That's also an operating or a cost of operating the utility is replacement of aging capital infrastructure. And so there is certainly more detail in the report and more detail in the budget, but it's a little bit more detail than you at least had at the very beginning. If I went through it too fast, I apologize for that. But so again, it's about $604,000 a month. And that's just dividing that flat. It may go up and down per month, and if there's.
What's the 323?
That's operating and maintenance, and then when you add debt service to that, the total is 604.
The debt service costs almost as much as it does the road.
Yeah.
600 and how much?
$604,109 per month, and that's if you assume it's the same every month. It's likely higher in some months where there's peaks, but.
You got a total number, but break it down. How many years do we have to pay on that debt?
Didn't we just see that? I think, yeah.
It's another slide.
So there's about $34 million in outstanding principal, about $7.4 million in interest that's been paid so far. The bonds mature in 2030. And I just jotted these notes down as we were going through this. The first group of bonds, the 12 million, so it's kind of complicated. The bonds, part of the original bonds were refunded in 2017. Some were left in place. The portion that was left in place, the 12 million, matures in 2030. And then the portion that was refunded in 2017 matures in 2047. And that's about $38 million at the time that the bonds were refunded in 2017.
Do you know the interest rate on them?
I don't have the interest rate handy, no.
Is that a floating interest or is it a lot?
It's fixed. I mean, it changes from year to year, but it doesn't go up and down.
That still doesn't help.
No, we're looking at 47 years.
How much is it per month? What's wrong with it? Give me that information.
It's about 600,000 for operating costs per month.
400,
Including repayment and
604.
okay, how much is 4,047 meters times 103.36? How much is that?
That was roughly, I think, let me see the math.
You said 4,447 meters times 103.
One question I do have for the public hearing is, as we're going through looking at the water and the sewer right, is included in just the figures, not changing.
For residential.
Okay, right, yes.
Commercial it is.
Right, so for the residential. The question I have is whether or not those are always tied together? Like, could there be an intermediate look at sewer, just at least for giving more information, explaining that, like what options are going forward? Or is it always tied to, like, the water sewer rate, the way we look at them, tied to the every 5-year cycle? At a minimum, I know I will be asking staff to provide that information just because it's difficult to understand, obviously, for the average person. But then even with looking at it, like, hey, what does that mean as far as the amount that's going in and what our progress looks like? Really, I think that's what people are trying to understand is what's our progress? And if we haven't been given that in the past, that's good for people to understand, so they know what to expect. So at a minimum, my recommendation would be with any acceptance of or action from the city council, whether we do or don't vote on this, to provide more information either way going out.
And if we're going to do that, we'll just continue the public hearing. That would be the third option.
So if I understand you correctly, then, Chris, what you're suggesting is that we also provide information as to the reduction on what we owe on the sewer plant, periodically. Is that what you're suggesting?
Yeah, a progress.
Not as part of this motion.
Correct, yeah, okay. Just like going forward regardless,
right.
There would be some kind of progress report available to the public on the sewer plant, which, just so people understand, like, what was committed in the past and where we're at.
Progress.
Yeah.
Progress to paying down debt service,
exactly.
really.
I think there's no issue with that.
Okay. Yeah, we agree. I have another suggestion or a comment. Ms. Luann spoke about it, and I believe that she's right in that I think the percentage was 12% in terms of what I remember from our past meeting, that we weren't capturing about 12% of the usage. And if these smart meters go forward, that they're going to be more accurate. And also, and there's incentive in these charts. We went through it quickly, but there's incentive in these charts to conserve water, right? So what I'm getting at with those two, meaning folks are going to be more accurately, their meters are going to be more accurate, and also the rate really incentivizes using less water. So the combination of those is really what I see as sort of what should be a communication plan from the city to communicate that need to residents. And so I guess my question is if funding for some sort of, again, communications, public campaign to residents about the importance of that, I would like to see that, and I'm not sure, again, I know we have that little thin line between expenditures and revenues, but perhaps somewhere in there we can use some of that to really inform our public about what they can do, really specific steps, what they can do to try and conserve.
And that would be a future agenda item or future motion?
Future motion.
Okay.
Sorry, just making, that's just a comment. That's a general comment. I'm sorry about what I would like.
215.
Okay.
All
right.
So we keep on it.
Sure. Thank you, Mayor. I appreciate that. Keeping me in line.
Outside of addressing some of the concerns, which sounds like mostly about communication, what people can expect for the future, 10, 15, 20 years. I do think that from our previous discussions on this item that it does highlight what Christina mentioned about people paying for what they use. Rather than the lump sum, you could probably look especially at the last 3 months with heavy rains and people probably using quite a bit less water but paying the same amounts. there will likely be peaks and valleys with usage, and I was looking at my own water bill over the last several years, which you can look at on the city's relatively new site where you can pay your bill, to kind of know what to expect, and then maybe even anticipate, okay, I need to have a better watering plan for, in my case in particular, lots of, use in landscaping. And I know that that's probably a higher source of usage for a lot of people. Now, I understand all of the concerns, but I don't think that necessarily they address the issue at hand, which is the water structure change, which allows many people who still, even though they may be confused about the rate, who would probably still actually benefit from the structure change in not paying for more than what they're currently using. And I know, just as an example, being able to look at my own bill, I've been paying for more than what I've actually been using, but that's just the way the rate structure was. So I do think that the structure itself looks good on average for most users, because they will have the ability to impact their own water bill more so than anybody had in the past. And potentially spread savings during times where there's low usage to times when they know they're going to use more, like in the summer. So I do think part of that comes down, again, to our ability to communicate that to the public. If that means we continue the hearing for the purpose of better communication, I would encourage that. I don't know if there's a timeline for us to meet with compliance for Prop 218 and closing this out.
What I would do is recommend that we close this out. On the next meeting we have, we can agendize that when we get to the meetings, and we can go over another discussion.
Yeah.
Isn't that agreeable with everybody?
Yeah, but I would like to emphasize too that I don't know that the water side of it is the issue that most people are concerned about. It's the sewer side, and can we come back, continue the public hearing and bring it back next month, next meeting, but also provide a greater breakdown of the expenditures and the income that the sewer side is bringing. And how, I don't want to overburden staff, that's not my intention.
No, I
But
understand.
think it's-
What I'm having a hard time with is, I mean, the numbers for revenue have been laid out. I mean, we can see what we're collecting. We've laid that out
Right.
in the presentation. What level of detail do you want down to, like, every line item within the sewer plant of what we're expending money? How that gets spent?
Does it exist already? I mean, I would think for bookkeeping.
I don't know.
I would think for bookkeeping reasons it would already exist.
It may exist in a format that's not really, all collaborative, all together. I mean, we know what we spend based on the annual year, but I don't know how that data is currently collected.
We certainly can leave that to staff and leave that to Dave to decide ultimately. But I think the greater the breakdown, the more satisfied the citizens are going to be with the information that they receive. So it's like looking at your own family budget, and I get that. I don't do a very good job of that myself. I hand that over to my husband, but we don't have that option here. So,
Well, and as was discussed, the monthly expenditures aren't necessarily the same every month. They're going to
True,
change.
yeah.
So if we give you annual, we can divide that out into 12, but if we give you monthly, we give you 1 month, and then a different month is a very different cost.
it would make sense to do an annual and split it up, divide it by 12.
Exactly.
That would make sense to me. And I think that would probably pacify most of the constituents and people that are a little concerned about this. And I really like Chris's idea, I think it was your idea, Chris, about providing information.
Yeah, just a progress
Right.
report, like
Right.
what is the history of, like, when the loan started, and a breakdown, very simple of where we're at and where we need to go.
Right.
As far as total expenditures remaining for the sewer plant with our loans. And then that could, there might be a way to tie in the O&M costs for that, not just the, hey, this is what debt we incurred and now we're paying it off, but then, those are two separate things, but they do go into, you can't average them out, but people probably want to know a little bit more about just what's our debt against the sewer plant. And we have numbers, but it's not widely distributed, I think. It's not that we can't provide those numbers. It's just about how frequently and how well we communicate that. And simply, I think, as well, because the details are going to satisfy those who really want details, but I think for the majority of people, fine detail is probably going to confuse. And so I think just a big picture view of where everything started, where we're currently at, and where we need to get to eventually pay off.
Well, I think in the interim, we'd also have to discuss how we got to, where things started isn't good enough because there was a refinance of bonds. So
right.
there is another step to that.
Absolutely. And that the picture you paint is yours to tell about, how we are where we're at, right? How we got there. And that's up to staff to paint that picture as best they can, so that, again, the public understands why we're, what the future, what defined the future, right? So that kind of paints that picture a little bit more. You're absolutely right. I was trying to make it as simple as possible, but you're right. There is explanations of steps in between.
And it's not linear. That's what people need to understand. It's not simple and it's not linear. It's not like you buy a house and you pay X for 30 years and then it's done.
Right.
This had several different types of loans and they had different types of rates and some could be refinanced and some couldn't. And so we've refinanced several parts several times. It's not going to be easy for anyone to follow.
Right.
Even the finance people.
Okay. Well, I think we should at least make our best effort in putting the information out there. It doesn't have to be even by the next meeting. I think we're just a goal to get that information out there in a way that the public can understand.
And that's another, again, we can leave that to staff and we'd like that as being done. And then we can just still move it.
Just move ahead.
Okay?
Yes. That would be great.
Yeah, I understand what you're talking about. We can get that taken care of in terms of the financial numbers. We put everything on there. We put the bond sheet on there. And here's the payoff date. Here's when we pay it. And we get that information out there.
And what Carrie suggested, the monthly broke out by year. Okay.
If we could set a goal, maybe to have that, if it's reasonable, by the time we form the new annual budget, because that's going to take time. And it could potentially be something you just have in the annual budget so people can have that breakdown. I know you can steer me away from that if that's not reasonable, but
some of the details you're asking for will not be in the annual budget. That'll be in the CAFR and some other documents we're preparing right now.
Right.
But you'll have the cost and the expenditures for both water, sewer broken down throughout the budget.
Yeah.
Correct.
Right.
Okay, and what is our deadline on this as far as?
May 1st is when these take effect.
May 1st?
When these take effect.
Okay.
If we approve it tonight.
No, so the rates can't take effect for at least 30 days after the date of this hearing, and they wouldn't take effect until the first full billing cycle after those 30 days. So you're probably looking at June, July before the rates would show up on people's bills.
Does that raise any additional problems?
I think the mayor suggested that you move forward with and conclude the hearing tonight and vote on this item, and then staff will get the information.
Conclude the hearing. Okay. Till I close the hearing. Go ahead.
Are you on there?
So we're able to close the hearing. Okay, never mind. I'll just be quiet for a minute. Are we moving then to approve as is, and
And let staff take care of the rest and make sure it's posted on the webpage, and we'll keep after them to get it on. I mean, is that agreeable?
I agree. I think it's educational information that we're going to be posting post this hearing. That's my view.
Personally, I think I would rather see, I'd rather see all the information out there, especially when we're looking at,
Okay.
looking.
Then with that, I'm going to continue the public hearing. And I'm going to leave the public hearing open. I'm going to leave the public hearing open and continue the public hearing to our next meeting on.
Well, that's just my motion.
Okay, well, we've all
Okay.
agreed. Second, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Motion carries. We'll continue this item to our April 25th meeting. Okay, with that, we're going to move on to item number, I guess, 8B, consideration of whether to declare certain real property located at the northwest corner of Mountain View and Santa Clara Street with surplus and finding a
Presenting this item, Mayor and council members. This item relates to property at the northeast corner of Mountain View and Santa Clara Streets. It's approximately 1 acre. It's south of the railroad tracks in the downtown area. It was subject to a long-term lease by Fillmore and Western Railroad, which lease has now expired. The land uses authorized on this site are governed by the downtown specific plan, and the property is also located in an area designated as railroad property within the central business district zoning designation. The property is therefore designated for residential use and railroad-related activities. The property is within the city's former redevelopment area, and pursuant to the redevelopment plan as well as city law, 15% of any housing units built on this property would need to be restricted for affordable housing. The Surplus Land Act is the process that the city will go through if the city decides to declare this property for sale. The Surplus Land Act applies to any property being sold by a public agency, and first it must find that there's no current or anticipated future use for the property and adopt a resolution declaring it surplus. Then the agency needs to issue notices of availability regarding the property to various public agencies such as school districts, transportation agencies, and park and rec districts, as well as affordable housing developers. They have 60 days, to respond to the notice of availability and let the city know if they're interested in acquiring the property. If any one of those entities lets us know that they're interested in the property, then we enter into a 90-day negotiation period where, in good faith, we need to negotiate and see whether we can sell the property to them or not. If we can, then at the end of that, the city council would approve a contract selling the land. If not, we need to ask HCD for clearance that we've gone through the required surplus process, and then have the ability to sell the property on the open market to any other party interested. So the item before you tonight is to adopt a resolution declaring this 1 acre parcel to be surplus and finding an exemption from CEQA. Please let me know if you have any questions. Thank you.
One question I do have is the recommendation would be that if we were to sell it, it would go into the general fund. Is that mandated by the Surplus Land Act that it go to a general fund, or could it go to a specific project if identified?
It can go to any project. I was identifying this as being different. The other surplus property that the city's done has been successor agency property, and so in those cases, the city only got to keep 20% of the money, and the rest went to the state to dispose of to other agencies. So in this, since the city's the owner, we get to decide what happens with the money. So it'll be the council's decision, however, to spend the proceeds.
Okay, and that would be at the time of sale, or would that have to be decided now?
Oh, no. At the time, it doesn't even have to be at the time of sale. You guys can bank it and decide later,
Right.
oh, hey, we had that money.
Right, okay.
Okay, can I entertain a motion?
Okay, I'll move that the City Council approve Resolution Number 23-3933, declaring the property to be surplus, authorizing offers for the purchase of the property pursuant to the Surplus Land Act, and finding these activities to be exempt from CEQA.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
I have a motion. I have a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Moving on to item number 9C, initiate proceedings for the annual levy of assessments for Landscape and Lighting District Number 2 and Heritage Valley Landscape and Lighting Zone District 2007-1.
Mayor, I have a conflict on this item and the next item, so I'm going to recuse myself from the room.
Okay.
And can I just clarify that
Yeah.
those of us that have conflicts on one or more of the resolutions, that we just not vote on those? Is that how this is working?
Right. What you'll do when it comes time to vote is you'll say you approve or disapprove.
There's information in the report regarding all of the various assessment zones and what the cost would be in each of those. The council is it's recommended that the council adopt 6 resolutions, 3 for each district involving initiating proceedings, approving the engineer's report, and setting the time for a public hearing, which is recommended to be May 23rd at the City Council meeting that evening. This concludes my report on this matter, but I'm available to answer any questions.
Any questions for staff? Okay.
I do have, well, one question really. There was a potential budget shortfall, essentially, that was identified in the tens of thousands of dollars. Could you give us an idea of what that's most closely related to, whether it be the contract maintenance of landscape and lighting or materials itself? Just maybe an idea of what was driving that shortfall, so that we can at least have a better understanding of what might, contribute best, or where we're actually solving something with the increase.
Certainly. The projected shortfalls, and once again, I want to emphasize this projected, is the result of a number of districts who are district zones that were created many years ago, and let me get my thoughts back. Sorry, created years ago, and the maximum levy for those districts is now at the maximum, and the only way to increase that levy would be to go through a costly, time-consuming process, which history has shown is not successful, because it would require the property owners who are taxed to agree to increase the tax on their property tax for this purpose. There are some other options the city could employ to do that, to eliminate the potential shortfall. One would be to reduce the level of service provided in those zones, and the second would be for the general fund to make up the difference. Some cities do both or have tried to do both. The recommended action would be to reduce services, but not to the point where it would have an impact on the quality and of the landscaping and whatever improvements are on the property, including the street lights. The other would be for the city council to use its fund balance to make up the difference. That decision would not need to be made right now. It would be made after the year has been completed and the actual costs have been calculated as compared to the proposed budget.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay, I'd like to entertain a motion. Whichever person can make the motion. Who can make the motion for the first one?
Okay, I have a question for Tiffany. Are we, for these 7 recommendations, let's go each one?
And then just
Oh,
say
resolutions, that's
you're-
right, okay.
You're not,
Right. Okay, so, here we go, okay. All right, my motion is to accept city staff's recommendation that we take all actions numbered 1 through 7, and I myself will abstain from those resolutions that include, just lost it, district, landscape and lighting district number 2.
okay, I have a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
I have a motion, I have a second. Anybody else? All in favor, say aye.
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 Except you need to,
I need to,
Oh.
yeah, hold on.
you need to recuse. Recuse.
I approve, but I'm going to abstain from lighting landscape district 2007-1 zone 1.
Okay. Chris?
I also will vote aye with abstaining from landscape lighting district 2007-1 zone 1.
Okay. I have a motion, I have a second. All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion carries. Moving on to item number 8D, review the engineer's report regarding the proposed increase in assessments for City of Fillmore Storm Drain Maintenance District, adoption of resolution to initiate the proceedings and the intent to levy the annual assessments and the setting of a public hearing to consider this proposal. That was a breathful.
Thank you. This is very similar to what you just acted on, but instead of landscape and lighting, it's for storm drains. The city has 9 storm drain districts, and the proposal, once again, is to authorize proceeding with the levy of assessments after a public hearing in May. The cost of maintaining these storm drains increased substantially in about 2011 after the Regional Water Quality Control Board approved the MS4 permit, which increased the tasks for various cities in the county to maintain the storm drains. It included ways to eliminate various contamination from getting into the river and then going out into the ocean, and it's basically a water quality issue. There's only one resolution that needs to be adopted for all of these districts, and once again, you're recommended to set the public hearing date for May 23rd.
Okay, do anybody have any questions? I can entertain a motion.
Okay, I'll move that the City Council adopt a resolution number 23-3932, declaring the intention to levy the annual assessment for fiscal year 2022-23 for Fillmore Storm Drain Maintenance Assessment Districts numbers 1, 1A, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7A, 7B, and 7C, as well as set a hearing for May 23rd at the regularly scheduled City Council meeting to receive public comment regarding the engineer's annual assessment report and the proposed levy of assessments for each district. And in my motion, I would like to abstain from the vote for the district number 4, Riverwalk.
Before you vote, can I offer a correction?
Oh, yes, thank you.
The staff report recommendation is for fiscal year 22-23. It's actually for fiscal year 23-24. It's a typo that I apologize for.
Thank you.
Do we have to redo the motion or no?
Can I amend my motion? I'll amend that motion to change the date from 2023, 2024.
Okay, I have a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
I have a motion, I have a second. Anybody else need to?
I'm going to abstain from SD 7 Zone C.
Okay.
I'll also abstain from SD number 7, Zone C.
Okay, I have a motion, I have a second. All in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed, motion carries. Moving on to item number 9E, Development Permit 2102 and Conditional Use Permit 2102, Property Owner and Request for a Second Amendment to the Property Remediation Agreement for 461 Central.
Thank you, Mayor. Do we want to
Dave
get
back?
City Manager?
Nah, just let him sit in there.
Thank you, Mayor and City Council and City of Fillmore. This item is for 461 Central Avenue. 461 LLC is the owner. It involves a time extension to the property remediation agreement for 6 months, 6-month time extension. What is a property remediation agreement? This was a special agreement entered into between the city and the property owner, which allowed the property owner to keep the lights on, get occupancy, have events, hold its banquets, et cetera, while it was in the process of obtaining its permits after the fact. It basically allowed for a reversal in how you got the permits. They went from occupancy improvements to building permits to planning entitlement in reverse. We're through most all of the things that they had to comply with at this point. They've got everything implemented. It looks beautiful. If you ever have a chance to go in there, I highly recommend it. They've been holding events over the course of the past couple of years that this agreement's been in place. So it's a nice addition to the city. And we've worked well with the property owners. Everything is good except for 2 remaining items in the conditions of approval. The remediation agreement required conditions of approval all be complied with until we've completely signed off on its occupancy. The last 2 items are benches in the parkway and waste bins, and undergrounding a light pole at the corner of Kensington and the alley. Those 2 have been delayed. The former, the benches and the waste bin, are delayed from a materials manufacturing standpoint. It's a custom-made bench. You see them out here in front of City Hall. The applicant, or the property owner, I should say, has installed the concrete pads, so it's all set, ready to intake those benches and waste bins. It's expected they'll arrive in June of this year. And the second item, as I mentioned, is the pole removal and street light replacement. The applicant owner is working with Edison, and I've also been in touch with Edison quite a bit and coordinating with them on the scope of work there. So we'll continue to stay working tightly with Edison and hopes to get that undergrounding effort done. And it will look a lot better once it is done. It's an old standard Cobra head light that will be changed to the Fillmorean decorative light post. So again, we'll keep tabs on it over the next 6 months. This extension would give them until October, I think it's 20th, 2023. Staff recommends that City Council approve this second amendment to the agreement to 10/20/2023, and we'll keep you posted. Thank you. I'm here to answer any questions.
Any questions for Brian? Okay, I'd like to entertain a motion.
I will make a motion to approve the second amendment to the property at 461 Central and extend the deadline to October 20th.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
I have a motion, I have a second. All in favor, say aye.
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 Motion carries. Okay, we're moving on to item number 10, committee, commission, and board reports. Anybody? Okay. Seeing none, we're going to move on to city manager verbal report.
I have our police chief up and give a quick presentation.
Thank you, Dave. Good evening, Mayor and City Council. I'll try to keep it short. I won't talk about sewage rates tonight.
No, don't get started.
I wanted to just give you guys a little update on our homeless population and some of the things that have been going on, hopefully answer some questions, even some things that were brought up today with the public comment. So one of the things that we worked together with Dave and the management team here at the city was to get backpack medicine out here on April 17th. So that's been arranged. We're in contact with James Boyd with the Ventura County Healthcare Agency. Backpack medicine is going to be out here on Monday, April 17th at 9 o'clock, and we're trying to hold that at Burlington Park. One of the things that I think it was Councilmember Garola brought up a meeting or two ago was, being able to hold like a public meeting where the public can come out and get any answers, any questions, answers that they might have. So we kind of arranged that because we thought, what a better way to have questions answered than by subject matter experts. And so we teamed up with Backpack Medicine. They're totally on board. They'll be out here at 9 o'clock on Monday, along with myself and a couple of my staff members, and the public is invited to come out. They can ask whatever questions they may have, reference our unhoused population out there, and we'll try to get them whatever answers they can, with everybody that's out there. So again, Monday, 9 o'clock in the morning, Burlington Park. And then after, obviously, the question and answer, they'll provide their regular backpack services, backpack medicine services.
Chief, can you elaborate a little bit on, for the public, for people who don't know what backpack medicine is?
Yeah, so backpack medicine is run through the Ventura County Healthcare Agency, and in essence, it's a bunch of professionals that come out and they provide various services to our unhoused population. Doctors, caseworkers, subjects with for housing situations and things like that. So they come out, they evaluate people on the spot. They actually have medical doctors that check them on the spot and give them whatever medical services they need. They coordinate housing, transition, or emergency housing on the spot if people want that. They coordinate that on the spot. And they also provide naloxone, which I know was brought up in the earlier public comments. So they do provide that. And they do that. They do that every month. I've been in communication with them, and I just went back several months, but they've been doing backpack medicine in Fillmore for quite a while. They did it in August, September, October, November, and then December of 2022. December 15th, 2022 being the last time. And then they didn't do it for January, February, and March, primarily because of the storms. All the people with backpack medicines that come out, obviously the healthcare agency needs to kind of keep their safety in mind, and it's not feasible to bring them out and travel the muds down there and make contact with people because it's not safe for them. So now that we got clearer skies, April 17th is the next backpack medicine.
Chief, if I could ask, sorry,
Yes,
just a
ma'am.
follow-up question. Thank you. The cost or for the backpack medicine to come out, is that something that's just provided through the county and the healthcare agency to all the cities and the unincorporated area?
Yes.
Is there something that we directly have ever paid for this service?
I don't believe there's any
Okay.
fees at the city. It's all handled through the county,
All
and
the
obviously
county.
services to the people that need them aren't, they're not being charged for
Right,
anything that's
okay.
provided.
It sounds like there might be private, privately funded organizations who do this for a cost. So I was just
Yeah.
asking if we've ever paid anything, but it sounds like it's something
No,
that we
it's
use
all through the
through a
county.
public agency.
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
And Chief, I'm
and
sorry,
then-
me again, sorry. And the time on the 17th?
9 o'clock in the morning.
9, okay.
It'll be the question and answer portion, however long that takes, depending on how many members of our community come out. And then as soon as that's done, they'll dive right into providing services to whoever they can contact down there at the river bottom. Naloxone, I know that came up earlier, referenced public comments. I just want to speak on that a little bit. The sheriff's office does carry anybody that's on patrol that's trained on naloxone does carry it, and that includes everybody at the Fillmore station. We don't give it out per se to people, but we do carry it in the event that somebody needs it, including our staff members. I know the fire department here, AMR does carry it as well, and they don't give it out, but they do use it whenever it is needed. As far as getting it, if somebody wanted to obtain that, again, Backpack Medicine does provide it when they come out once a month. One stop in Santa Paula, which is every Friday morning at 9 at the Buen Pastor Church. They can also obtain it there for free at no cost. I was told the Aegis Treatment Center in Santa Paula, which is a methadone clinic, also has naloxone that they give out at no cost. And then lastly, the FDA, I believe, just recently approved for it to be sold over the counter. So literally, you can go to CVS and any of your local pharmacies, and I'm not sure what the cost is, but you can definitely get it. There you go. It's free. So I just wanted to touch on that a little bit. As far as providing services, we do continue to provide services, obviously at the station level, and when people do want help, we try to make every accommodation possible. Just in the last month, on March 16th and the 21st, our deputies did transport 2 separate individuals that wanted services to the Ventura County Rescue Mission. So we are doing that. I'm sure you guys heard of the 3 subjects that were rescued out at the river bottom during the storms on March 23rd. They were not injured per se, but they weren't able to cross the water from an island that they were in. So they were airlifted out. They were not injured. They refused any services. And then the following day, Gloria Lozano with behavioral health went out there with our deputies to try to get them services, and then we just couldn't locate them. They move around quite a bit from time to time. The overdose at the Vons, the Gazette put an article on there. I don't have a lot of information other than what was in there, but a subject did pass away in there. There was evidence or drug paraphernalia that was consistent with fentanyl use, which leads us to believe that he did in fact die of an overdose. However, the medical examiner is the one that can actually determine the actual cause, but that's that portion. I don't know if anybody had questions. I know it got brought up at public comments. Again, our Deputy Knox continues to stay on top of tracking our vulnerable population. He updates us regularly on a monthly basis. He's got regular contact pretty much every day that he works. So we're still continuing to do that. Let me see here what else. I think that's all I had for my notes. If you guys have any questions that I can answer.
I think first and foremost, I'd just like to say thank you, and especially to your deputies who have been involved and potentially in harm's way. That's what they understand that comes with their duties, and that should definitely be applauded and respected. And especially those that on their own time seem to be following up with members of the public. That's really, really impressive, and we have high-quality people in our department, and I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Appreciate that. Thank you.
Oh, well said, Chris. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other city manager comments?
Yeah, we'll post the information on the website and also on social media about the meeting at Burlington Park on Monday coming up.
Okay. And with that, we're going to move on to item number 12, closed session. We're going to go into closed session for 2 cases. Conference with legal counsel. The city council will conduct a closed session to confer with legal counsel regarding litigation that the city is party to. Title of such litigation as follows: City of Fillmore versus Lorena Felix and Rafael Jimenez. The second case is the city will go into conduct a closed session to confer with legal counsel regarding the litigation to whom the city is party to. The title of such litigation as follows: the matter of appeal of cities of Fillmore, Los Angeles, Ontario, Palm Springs, San Diego, San Jose, and County of Sacramento. Council is, we're back from closed session. Council was updated. There was no reportable action on either case. Have a good night. Oh, adjourn to the regularly scheduled meeting on April
25th.
25th. Meeting adjourned.